What's up, everybody? Welcome to the I was going to say the very first episode of Viewer Takeover. We've been doing Viewer Takeover for years, and then we incorporated it into Gamescast Live as just, shit we did the entire show. But we're bringing it back because, you know what? People were saying one live show a week wasn't enough. And so I said, you know what? We're kind of in a slow season. And so there's not really room for two live shows talking about the news, the PSVR2 every single week. But Viewer Takeover, man, is desperately missed. And so I figured, let's do this. A nice, relaxing Sunday show. And who better to be the inaugural guest than my friend over at Psytec Games, Jon Hibbins. Jon, what is going on? How are you?
Hey! Great, absolutely fantastic. I know, it's great to be here again. I love coming on your show. It's one of my favourite shows, period, anyway, but being here is even better because we get to talk about VR, my favourite subject, and frankly, it's been too long already, so I'm happy to be here. Very, very happy to be here.
One of our favorite topics. Yeah, right before the show started, right before we hit the go live button, we were talking about like 8-bit computers from the 1980s. So like, like one of our many favorite topics to discuss when we're together.
Yeah, I do. I mean, what people don't see is we got together like 15 minutes before the show and we can't stop talking. So it's like we've already done an entire show. Everybody's missed out on that. But no, absolutely catching up. I was showing my Spectrum Next 2, which we brought to make a game. And I've got a ZX81 mint in a box. And yeah, we're talking a bit about that. And it looks like you've got quite a collection of things behind you there.
Yeah. Yeah,
do you collect retro stuff?
I actually just got rid of a majority of my collection and kept a couple shelves with some cool things that I wanted to hold on to. But what I did to kind of make playing old video games easier was to. Do you ever see those like really ghetto sort of like possibly illegal systems on Amazon that are like 60,000 games preloaded onto one console? You've seen those, right?
Yeah, I've absolutely seen them. But it's starting to. Oh God, there's a whole bunch of stories about retro. Right, where are we going with retro? Twice a year, there's a London retro games event, which is like so popular that when you book the tickets are quite expensive. Like go to a market and you pay to go to the market, and you book for slots. And the early morning slots are really busy. Like it jam packs the place with, and there's 100 stands with just crazy. Send you sending you to the past stuff. It's like just walking through the corridor, you get so much nostalgia. It's hard to move. So I've just done that. That was like a couple of weeks ago, maybe a week and a half ago, something like that. Yeah, I brought some stuff. I brought what did I buy? I brought a Game Boy Advanced Crystal. Have you seen the clear ones?
Oh yeah, the original
right?
one with the buttons on the side, not the SP, right?
Yeah, the original one, clear, mint, but it was mint box, but they've taken it out the box brand new. Opened it up, fitted it with the TFT backlit screen,
nice.
The brand new like low power thing, and closed the box again. So it's absolutely mint. Yeah, so that's my latest retro purchase. Absolutely beautiful little device. Yeah, and I must admit, carrying the carts around is a pain in the neck. So I can totally understand people that do stuff. But I mean, you can get a Game Boy emulators and stuff on the iPhone now. That's legal, and there's stuff on the store you can download. So that's taking off. And I pre-ordered Palmer Lucky's Game Boy. I don't know whether you spotted that. He's made a Palmer Lucky, oddly, has made a Game Boy Color replica that plays the carts and everything. It's like hard to describe, but I'm sure somebody in the chat can link it. But I've pre-ordered one of those as well. So yeah, now I'm into my retro stuff as well as my current and VR and modern gaming. But yeah, I've always been strongly into this stuff.
I picked up actually 2 analog pockets because apparently one wasn't enough. So I got my Game Boy fix right here with all that stuff. But
nice.
But dude, I took it out of the this nice protective plastic case, and I put my big greasy Italian hands all over it, and immediately like it's just oh my god, the finish is too nice, and I'm ruining it by touching it. So it's like too beautiful to play. So it just sits on the shelf, and then I play everything emulated. So.
Well, I like to think I know a lot about gaming history because I've been playing since like ZX81, right? So I've grown up with every console and every PC. I mean, there's a few earlier than the ones I experienced. Maybe some of the Apple stuff, some of the rare American stuff, maybe like punch cards. But other than that, I was born at the perfect time. I literally was just old enough to start playing gaming, and haven't stopped since. So I've sort of owned every console, and I've got a whole bunch of favourites, and I'm sure I've kicked some nostalgia when I say like GameCubes and Sega Dreamcast, and there's some beautiful ones along the way, right? And the first Xbox playing Halo, and but I pretty much owned every console that I could afford to buy, and some strange ones. Like I had the original Neo Geo with one game. One game. I used to have to take it to the shop, the cart. Yeah, I had one game, the full cart. I mean, they were really expensive, and I used to have to take it to the shop and trade it in for another one. It should see the amount of bad trades. You trade in like Ninja Warrior or whatever for some bad game, but I played as many as I could. So now I generally love PCs and consoles, and always brought into it as much as possible.
So wait, what's the one game that you've got for the Neo Geo then? What did you?
I haven't got that anymore. I don't know. Honestly, I couldn't tell you where. I've not been much of a hoarder, which is probably a good thing because I'd have a house full of stuff right now. And I don't know whether I don't think I regret that at all. I've always been like on the cutting edge. I haven't got any DVDs or Blu-rays anymore. I've gone digital with that, and I've got a reasonable LP collection. But honestly, look at it and go, well, this is all modern stuff just for the quality of the audio, right? It's like I haven't collected it over time, particular. But same with computers, really. I probably have such a library. I mean, if I kept every VR headset I've ever owned, I would like fill a room full of those as well. So it's probably a good thing I'm not much of a hoarder, really. And I'm glad to hear you're getting rid of a few things. They just take up enormous amounts of space. So I tend to just keep the stuff I really love, and then move it on as soon as I've done with it, and then move on to the next thing.
Well,
that's true.
At some point, like I said, I picked up one of those all-in-one retro consoles, right? It was like came preloaded with 60,000 games, and I was like, this is gonna be trash. And then I plugged it in, and I absolutely loved it. Like, and there was like the Amstrad and the ZX Spectrum and Commodore 64, and I grew up with the C64, so like I started going down memory lane. But then everyone I've talked to like grew up with the ZX Spectrum, and so I need to pick some people's brains and be like, which games do I need to check out on these things? But maybe
there's a lot to that. Even as though you think you've played a lot, if you look at the full library, it's unlikely you could have afforded everything, because there would have been £30 you couldn't have afforded all the N64 games, right? Nobody was buying all of them,
and no one should have bought all of them. The N64 had a pretty rough library.
It definitely did. It certainly had a few rough games, but it also had gems that you don't realize till years later that you missed. So I've gone back and played a lot of things that, especially like arcade games and side-scrolling brawlers and various rare racing games and stuff. Really to fill in the gaps. To actually, and actually the first game I played on the Game Boy Advance, that crystal one I brought, was Mario Pinball.
Oh wow! Of
all games,
dude,
because I didn't know until recently there was one, so I got hold of that. And Wave Race, the Game Boy version.
That's top down, right?
Yeah, I only played the Wave Race. I mean, absolutely outstanding. I think it was on the 64, right? Nintendo 64, or whatever. And I think it was outstanding. I mean, Wave Race is like legendary on there. Closely followed, perhaps nowadays, by Hydro Thunder. Maybe that's the second best in that space. But yeah, I played the Wave Race on there. So yeah, I'm trying to fill in gaps as well, as any good game designer would do. I try also to learn from people's game design. And you can see if you played the top-down Wave Race, you can absolutely see how it applies to where they got to, and I find that fascinating. There's a studio that's continuing to make games, doubling down on learning and evolving, and it's a beautiful thing. And you can see how almost all the companies I admire, but certainly easy ones to talk about, are people like Helldivers recently. There was a Helldivers 1, and you can see the credence there. And if you look at the entire history of games like Returnal, if you look at their history and where it comes from, and you go right back to early like side shooting, dual stick shooting and stuff, and From Software going all the back through their history, it's like a lot of the best studios, Grand Theft Auto, I could carry on really, but a lot of the best studios out there that we admire a lot today have an enormous history of getting to where they are.
Yeah. So
it's useful to know and study it.
There's nothing makes me I don't care too much about like actual important history, but when it comes to like developers and their history, that is stuff I just absorb and can't get enough of. And you actually, funny thing, you actually mentioned Mario Pinball on GBA, and like only recently, I've actually got a retro channel. Nick in the chat linked everybody to it, and so I was playing some Pinball of the Dead on Game Boy Advance over there, and it was actually AJ who was like, "Oh,
You
you
need to write that down.
oh,
Go
it's
play
so there's
Pinball of the Dead.
3 different tables, all House of the Dead themed. It's so good.
Nice.
Might be one. It's like that, along with the TurboGrafx 16, like Devil Crush and Alien Crush, are like some of my favorite pinball games of all time. But AJ of all people was the one who was like, "Hey, have you played Mario Pinball on Game Boy Advance?" I was like, "What? I never even heard of it." So it took me a little while to catch up on that too. So shout out to AJ for improving my retro knowledge.
Oh, when you get good friends that can say, "Oh, have you checked this out? Have you played that? Have you done this?" Have you done that? It's quite a list of things to play, but yeah, I haven't got any time right now. I'm playing the DLC of Elden Ring, so for anybody that's also suffering that, I'm on your side. But I'm playing it in New Game Plus, which is even more difficult. So I'm really brutal.
And here I thought you were going to say, I haven't time because I've been too busy working on new video games at Psytec Games.
That is true as well.
Yeah.
We are incredibly busy on that, but I do have some downtime. I'm not a great fan of crunch either, so I don't want to be working 24 hours a day on it. Even though it's hard to stop me right now, truthfully, I cannot stop working at the weekends, which is a problem. It's a good thing. Mm-hmm. It's because I'm excited. I sort of wake up and like, oh, I'll do this, right? Which any dev will know is a blessing, but also a curse because you can burn out if you do that too much.
Yeah.
So you've got to try and have a bit of balance with it.
Yeah, being your own boss is definitely a blessing and a curse. Sometimes.
Well, there's quite a lot of us now, so I don't feel like early days, like if I go right back to starting with VR, it's like there was a very small team, so it's like everything was on my back. Now I've let a lot go, so there's a lot of people working. And honestly, I think it's paying off. I can spend much more time on vision and direction and gameplay and feedback cycles and planning and all the cool stuff than really in the weeds doing stuff that now honestly there are better people than me doing. So it's cool. That's really cool.
John, since we started the show, there's been a trailer for Crystal Rift playing in the corner down here, and yeah,
I can't see that.
so I think
Crystal Rift's virtually all me. I mean, Nick and I made that together.
Mm-hmm.
We had somebody do the music and help with the music because I'm not a musician, so I couldn't have done the music. I think somebody recorded some voiceover, but it was like a paid job, so all the words you hear in the background and stuff, we got some voiceover done for. The script was done by Nick. We had a very good friend of mine, Rob, do the character work, because I couldn't build characters if I tried, but all the programming, like 99.999% of that is Googled, and it all worked out. No, I really cut my teeth in Unity there, so yeah, majority of Crystal Rift is me. I'm very proud of it. It's niche, I think. If you liked the original dungeon crawlers like I had Beholder and stuff like that, Dungeon Master, you'll love it. But I'm very proud of that game. I mean, it's still there, doing all right, actually. It still sells every month. I mean, it's a single month where that's not made money, so that's good.
And so it's coming to PSVR2 when?
I don't know. It takes too much money and time to do the port. I would love that, but honestly, you would rather me building new stuff. I can't wait to share what the next game is. And the one after that, frankly, I would. Yeah, you would rather be making the next game.
We just spent the first 20 minutes talking about retro games, so I'm just as much as I love new games.
I do my best. I do my best to keep it alive.
Yeah,
I did put Crystal Rift on Quest, so you can actually get it. It's on App Lab. I did that port mostly for what you've just said. It's just keeping it alive so it's available somewhere. Yeah. And the Quest platform is likely to be around for a long time. So I actually, in my own time, did the porting for that and made sure it ran on it. And slightly uniquely, I put in all the 6 Degrees of Freedom stuff in as well and fixed a few things that were just wrong. But it is there if people want to go and play it. But it costs a lot of money to go to PlayStation. That's the truth. Yeah. I don't think people realise how much money. Let's announce that Windlands 2 is coming. Let's talk about that so we can talk about it. So Windlands 2 is coming with past DLCs. It's going to be here on the 25th of this month. So it's on its way. And we're very excited about bringing that to that platform. And we've done quite a few things to it. We'll talk about the details probably in a minute. But I'm very, very happy to have done that. But we've not been able to do it like as an urgent job, like you'd want to. For really rubbish reasons, but I'll tell you what they are. We're working on our next game, and nearly the entire team it has to be dedicated to that because it's a big game. It's the first, it's a 7-figure game. It's huge for us.
Wow.
We're working with Meta on it as well. It's incredibly exciting. We're in main production on it, and it's too exciting not to be working on full time. And plus, that's where we should be doing our main work, right? So it's hard to put priority to do a port to PSVR 2 because fundamentally it's not the main platform right now. We're not expecting to become millionaires over releasing on it. In fact, some people would probably argue that doing it at all is a fool's game right now, which is sad because I love the PlayStation. And I hate saying those words, honestly, and I hope we do make our money on it. But we partnered with VR Monkey on it. VR Monkey, very well. They're cool guys. We managed to do a deal that made sense for both sides, but it wasn't like front and center, right? There's two types of deals you can do with this. You can pay a lot of money and get entire teams around it and get it done quickly, or you can do what we did, which is truthfully spend less money on it, partner on it, but it becomes a background job. So we chip away at it over time, both their side and our side, but majority their side. And do the quality test, get everything through when you can in the windows, really. And those guys have been busy. They've done a few games and a lot of patches.
Yeah.
So that's what we've done, and I don't regret that, honestly. I think I would have loved to have done it quick, but we would have spent so much money on it, and we can't burn money. We want to be spending money on making new games. So
Sure.
But it is coming, and I do want to support the platform, put my money where my mouth is, so to speak, and keep supporting it. And I do mention regularly that to anybody at Sony, what you're doing, why you're supporting it more. Saw Greg Rice this week develop. I keep pushing buttons, but it is where it is. I've got high hopes though. This stuff happening, right?
Yeah. I think we're going to talk a lot more about the stuff that's happening. I don't want to get off Windlands 2 quite yet though, because obviously a big VR Monkey's brought a lot of stuff over to PSVR 2. I feel like every time I talk to Pedro over there, he's like we've got so many irons in the fire, like constantly. And so every time a new game gets revealed that's being worked on by them, I'm like, not super surprised because they seem like they're doing everything. The catches get out of the bag this week. I think that they're the ones handling the Ghost of Tabor port for PSVR 2. So they just have so much stuff going on. But they're also like really good. They understand the platform. They're really good at making changes on the fly, fixing things as fast as they can. And generally they really understand what PSVR 2 gamers are looking for. And so with all that in mind, do you know, is this running at 90 native, 120 native?
The team's great. Yeah. Absolutely great. How can I answer that question? Yes, and yeah. It's running at not 120, it's running at 90, and it's like 1.4, so it's as good as we could get it. There's a balance actually between LOD, visibility for distance, and all of that with Windlands 2. So we got it as good as we could possibly do it, and that probably again takes a little bit more time because you've got to optimize the areas, you've got to change some shader stuff, and the whole bunch of testing behind that. We made it complicated for ourselves as well. We released with God, there's so many things behind the scenes. It costs. I might as well talk about the money actually. A typical port like that is £100,000 to £200,000, right? Yeah. So anything you can do to shave bits off or to save a bit of money, you want to be doing. But also we set high bar for quality. We didn't want to just bring it and it be bad. We wanted to make sure that it's got head haptics and stuff, and it's got we wanted to make sure crossplay was in. Which, if you look at the pure amount of team to first of all patch PC and Quest to be crossplay, then set the server infrastructure up for crossplay, and then obviously get PlayStation crossplay as well. In order to do crossplay, I probably know this, but crossplay on PlayStation, you have to go through a separate set of TLCs. You have to get permission to do the crossplay. You have to do, protocols all have to be set up correctly to work with it. So it's like enormous amounts of work to do a multiplayer crossplay game. But so it just takes more time and more pain. So anything we can do to shave money off it, we've actually been doing. But we've done it. We're across the line. We've managed to get it ready, and we're proud of it. And there's still a little bit of work that we want to do just before launch, but nothing that would affect us from releasing right now. Also, wanted to be careful that we didn't fall into the trap. It's like, oh, it's coming. We think we're going to pass the next TLC, and then it doesn't. It actually passed TLC a little while ago. I think some of the very careful people that go out and look for store space and achievements going live and stuff spotted the date that the TLCs went live. So you sort of like, we didn't do that on purpose. We wanted to just get it TLC. It was more get the TLCs done, then make sure that we've patched and polished into it and give it the best launch we can, because there's nothing worse than having to delay or push or whatever. So we've been trying to avoid that, but not easy. We might still find a bug right at the last minute that could cause us headaches. We don't think so, but it's not easy to do. Especially, it's like I say, the entire team right now is working really hard on our next title, and we're excited about that really. So, but it doesn't mean that we've ignored. Like I say, we've done a lot to it. We're gonna also launch it as cross-buy. Is it called cross-buy? If you own Windlands 2 on PS4, it will be free on PS5 for anybody that already owns it. We wanted to do that as well. Again, probably not a sensible business decision, in terms of finances. Not sensible at all. We're basically, it cost us so much to do the port, and then, and it hasn't cost us as much as a full paid port, like hundreds of thousands. We've brought that down as much as possible. But probably not a sensible business decision. But as Psytec, we want to do the right thing as often as possible. And I think we're learning more and more, because we're 11 years old now, but we're still finding our feet and learning more about how to do things right and do things correct for the community and keep maintaining games. And that is something we wanted to do, so we've done that. But again, that comes with its own headaches. In order to go full cross-buy, we have to take down the store page and time it with Sony, because they've got to press all the buttons on the launch day at the right time as soon as it goes live to set it all up in that way. And you need sort of like 2 weeks notice for them to do that and stuff. But so it adds a whole bunch of layer of just pure management of it really. But we're doing everything we can to do it right.
It doesn't seem like anyone's over at Sony is actually pushing the buttons. It feels like everything's automated, and which causes things to go live way faster than they're supposed to.
No, there's a lot of it's quite a complicated system. It's grown up over a lot of years. To be fair, they are maintaining that system all the time, and it's changed even recently to a new platform and URLs and stuff. They so they are constantly evolving, and I'm sure it will carry on evolving for years. I've seen it many years now. I remember the night before PSVR 1 launched, the platform changing to make sure we've got extra checkboxes. So it does constantly evolve, but it's quite complicated. There's a lot of capability behind the scene, and of course you don't release that often. Most studios, even studios that release a lot, like Dreams or whatever, they're not releasing every day. It's every 3 to 5 months or whatever, you're pushing buttons. And the system's evolved and changed. The rules are changing all the time. New SDKs and new requirements around new tools and features and future things. It's like it's a constant job to keep up with all that, and I assure you, I've gone in there and tried to do things sometimes and had to ask a lot of questions. It's like, what's this button here do and why? It's like learning something new every time we do a release, even though this is our fifth or sixth release now. I don't know on PlayStation in total, albeit to different platforms and stuff. It's always something new. But cool.
For people in the chat are asking how much it's going to cost for if they haven't purchased it before.
Oh, I should totally know that off the top of my head. It's the same price as the PS4 version. Would not change the price.
I want to say it launched at $30. I could be wrong.
I think it might have been $29.99, but I think it might be $24.99 off the top of my head. But it's around that, and we've not changed the price. We've just left it the same, but done the port to the PSVR 2. I mean, I love my PSVR. I keep it here, right? I love this headset for so many reasons. New Gran Turismo course inbound being the next one. yeah, so I really did want to support this platform, and yeah, truly. Well, I love all VR, but I truly have a special place for PlayStation. I want them to push it too. I still got a lot of optimism. I'm quite excited that it's coming to the PC. I technically want to bet that Half-Life Alyx is going to run on it, but not sure the person on the other end agrees. Something to do with dongles and technicalities, but I'm going to win one way or another. And I'm still optimistic that the PC library will come to the PC in some form. Sorry, to the PlayStation in some form.
You think so?
Like running Steam things. Well, Steam Link already exists for VR, and that could be quite a thing. I'm actually quite optimistic there'll be a mid-term refresh of the headset, but not that optimistic. I'd like them to drive the price down at Christmas. I'd like to see the price low, a couple of really good first parties, and a PlayStation 5 Pro out for Christmas. That's what I'd like.
Yeah.
That would be my tick box, my Christmas dream pick list. If that all happens together, I think the price would make a big difference, and maybe even a bundle. Let's go full swing. A refresh of the hardware.
Yeah.
A pro version and a light version. Bundled with a PS5 Pro with Gran Turismo 7 upgraded to 90.
You dream big, man. You dream big. I like it. A lot of people are they kind of get into this space where all this negativity surrounding PSVR2 like gets to them, and they say, like, oh man, it's dead. Sony's given up. Clearly, they don't want to support this thing. And I like, I come from a place of optimism because I really enjoyed the headset and I want it to succeed. Because it's where I prefer to play my VR games, right? And so in seeing the second half of 2024. I mean, not even the second half, like Q4 of 2024 looks unbelievable, right? There's just nonstop amazing third-party support, and we're going to be getting the best versions of most of those games. And so, like, I always go, how can you think this thing is dead when we just have so much content coming over the next, like, 3 or 4 months?
I think it's a tough one, isn't it? I think the best time is yet to come because, if there is going to be a PS5 Pro, right, which we're all predicting is happening,
yeah,
and I'm really hoping that happens before Christmas or whatever. If that is happening, then that will be the best hardware to run the PSVR 2 on, right? So, you'll unlock all the reprojection issues it's got. I do. The problem is, I suppose I'm a bit scarred here because I've used enough other headsets, right, and enough really fancy ones now to see like the best in class. I'm lucky enough to own one of these, right? I'll bring it over here. I'm lucky enough to own one of these, and I have done for a while, right? And once you've put that on your head and spent some time with it, even as though it's ridiculous, it's like nobody in their right mind should spend the money on that. It's way too expensive, but it is by far best in class visuals and stuff, right? So when you've got micro LEDs with just a density of pixels that's almost perfect, and then you've got no Miura, and you've got pancake lenses that are just easy, there's no sweet spot, and it just IPDs you, and you can put snap lenses on with magnets, and they're super thin, and it's like, and the audio is just outside. It's like you can see that it's not quite here today, but you can see in a few years' time, right, that every headset will be at that standard or better, right? And that's it's like peering into the future a little bit. And from that point of view, I'm really excited about the future. And I don't think PlayStation are fools. I think they can see the numbers and they can see that it's still a very interesting platform and it's constantly growing. So I just think, I've got optimism that at some point somebody will grab the reins of it and run it properly.
See, the headset you grabbed was much more expensive than the headset I'm going to grab. But even putting on the Quest 3, I can see why people complain about Mura on PlayStation VR 2. I can, the pancake lenses are super clear, and everything looks great. The sweet spot's bigger, and honestly, I know a lot of people will go to bat constantly for the OLED panels and all that, and even the Fresnel lenses. But man, I would sacrifice a lot in order to have a larger sweet spot. Get rid of the mirror for all the people who like. For me, it's not that big of an issue, right? I see it occasionally. For some people, they just can't get past it. So as far as I'm concerned, the revision, do pancake lenses, do whatever it takes to.
The problem is I've spoke like recently last week to somebody that knows what they're talking about in this. So I don't want to name names, right? And while I was at GDC, I had some conversations about this as well. I was lucky to see. I will drop these names. Looking to see Valve wires out there. I was looking to see Pico wires out there. HTC wires out there. Obviously Meta. I always see when I'm doing these things. I saw a really good range of people. And when you talk about flat pancakes and the cost, it's really prohibitive just from a manufacturing point of view. Yeah. They are, you want a £300 flat pancake device. Well, the pancakes themselves are $400 to $500 cost, right? So it's like, they are so prohibitive to the cost of, to bundling at cheap ends that, it just can't be done. They can't manufacture at scale just because it's really hard to do. Even the best in the world class stuff, it's really hard to do, and the failure rate's high. And you are layering glass so thin, it's really slow and painful to do. And the actual technology to do it is really complicated as well. You need certain quality of glass and stuff, which is also very costly. It's that everything about that flat pancake stuff is costly, right? So if you're going to take a decision, you and I are going to make a headset, without Parole headset, right? Let's start today. Let's start with pancake lenses because that would be cool. Well, that's the first £500, and you already started to write people out of the cost.
No, listen. If we're doing it without Parole headset, the number one most important thing is definitely the price, right? I run this channel on a shoestring budget. I rely on everybody here. I appreciate everybody who's donating. We'll get to your tips, I promise. And so, when I saw the price for Days of Play drop by $100 with the Netflix inclusion and all of that, so suddenly it was a financially viable product for some people to buy. I saw the results over here. I saw my channel, which had become, pretty stagnant for the last 6 months. Then there's a spike in views, a spike in subscribers, a spike in interest, people commenting left and right saying, I just bought my PSVR 2 on the Days of Play sale, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, okay, that was $100 off. If we can get the current model, maybe with a V2 where they can simplify it even more and make it manufactured even cheaper. If we get this thing down to $300, John, with the current build, dude, this thing's going to sell like crazy.
Yeah, and alongside a push of hardware as well, and it's like, no, I'm with you. It's better to drive like a revision that, it doesn't have everything you want, right? I'm surprised at the OLED because it's been proven now time and time again that you can do it without the mirror. So they need to solve that, either for a reverse filter or just better manufacturing standards. But the reality is that if they could solve that, if they could make the sweet spot a bit wider somehow, make it a little bit lighter, just generally just a revision of it, it would fly off the shelves. As long as it got under. Again, this might be quite opinionated, but as long as it got under $299,
that's the magical price point. Absolutely,
killer titles, $299, solve some of those problems. They've got a killer device, and they could really push it hard. And that's the problem. They've really got to see into the future. It's not about PlayStation VR2. It's about PlayStation VR 5. Right? You've got to build and ramp and push and invest. Right, and as that grows, and we're seeing it with Meta. I'm glad you pulled out a Meta headset. They've been 10 years doing that now, and they're not slowing down. I can promise you that. Every conversation I've had is about increasing investment, not about pulling back. They're doing more, they're pushing harder, and because they get that, this wasn't ever a few years or a few cycles. And it's really interesting because everybody knows Apple well. It's really interesting to see what Apple are doing and how they're pushing the operating system and hardware too. We all know it's version 3 that starts to look cost effective and good. Right, because that's their pattern for years, and they won't pull out. They'll carry on investing over time, and they'll start, and a lot of problems are getting solved. It's quite exciting. I mean, we only have to look back since we got into VR to where we are today and how far it's come. But we're talking millions of online concurrent users now, just in one game, never mind multiple. I mean, it's grown a lot. It's ebbing and flowing. It's a shame the PC isn't getting enough support anymore, because I think the PC would carry on growing if it got more and more hardware support over there. There are some interesting things in the pipeline there that I'm aware of, where some new PC headsets and things which should help reinvigorate. I think Valve's still making their next game. So I think that'll be interesting when that drops, and could reignite things again over there. Even PlayStation being over there, it's a cost-effective headset for dabbling with PC gaming. And I know a lot of developers that use it as a launch ground, and I'm aware of a few what I would say AAA titles that are PC only on the way. So there's stuff happening, and it's just patience. It takes a lot of time to make a good game, right? So I am aware of things happening, but we're not short of things. My God, I've got so much I can't keep up with it. I can't keep up with it anymore. I have to pick and choose myself what I play. It's good.
John, this definitely want to this stuff I want to talk about with Psytec, stuff I want to talk about with Windlands, but you know what? I think we're going to transition into some viewer takeover questions and hopefully answer some of the things that I want to talk about along the way. So let's just take care of these tips that have come in throughout the course of the show. Starting off with Not Sure Brondo with the $10 tip says, and we're off to a great start. It's reassuring that people were into the show when we were still talking about retro stuff. Not every VR gamer is a retro gamer, so I'm glad that our demographic tends to skew a little bit older, and so a lot of us have been playing games for 30, 40 years, so good stuff. Paradise Decays in the chat with the £2 says, the man, the legend, the John. What's up, PD?
Hell yeah. PD, well, met him a few times now.
Yeah, I don't think he's real. So he's real? I thought he was AI.
He's real.
Yeah.
He's an awesome guy. Yeah.
Oh, that's a shame. Makes it harder to hate people when they're nice.
Yeah. I try and, I get around a lot, and I try and go as many content creator meetups and things as possible and say hello. So yeah, hi Paradise. Good to see you.
Yeah, listen, we didn't give you shit about not coming to the GameCat Meetup 2024, but we are going to give you shit if you don't make it to the GameCat Meetup 2025.
I will do my best. I'm a GDC like the month before, but I would like to go to a PAX, so yeah, it seems no excuse. I will do my best.
We got Twitcher, the Deuce Juice GameCat, which is disgusting, but awesome to see you here, Twitcher, with the £5. Says, John, Windlands 2 was great, but to be honest, here we go. Twitcher, but just to give you a heads up, John, Twitcher always has divisive opinions, and so I can't wait to read the rest of this. I personally preferred the solitude and exploration of Windlands 1. Any chance we'll see a PSVR 2 port?
That's a tough one, isn't it? Because I love Windlands and the solitude of it, and those moments where you're wobbling your legs. If you've not done it yet, play Windlands 1 on hard mode, complete it in hard mode. That is where the fun is. I don't regret this. It's a tough balance. If you'd have launched it with hard mode, just being the default, a lot of people would have been put off and just said it's too hard. But if you really want to play that game, play it on hard mode. On normal, we add bushes, and it just makes it too easy. Play it on hard mode. But no,
I didn't feel that way. Dude, you got to remember, all of us over here were playing Windlands 1. Well, first of all, it launched with only DualShock 4 controls, and so that felt pretty natural. But then you added move support a little bit after launch, and all of us were getting used to how to move around in VR using the move button and turn buttons and all that stuff. But that's the way we all wanted to play, because we wanted two hands in this crazy Spider-Man swinging around game. So we all fucking just figured out how to do it. Right? We're all just like, we're gonna deal with this, and we're gonna do it. So I got to tell you, man, even on the normal difficulty, still acclimating to having two hands in Windlands, it was a really difficult game for me to play. I enjoyed it thoroughly, but it was really difficult. I never beat it, which is why there's not a review on the channel.
I mean, the answer is I'd love to bring it to the PlayStation, but I don't think it's going to happen. It's on the Quest. Go play it on the Quest. That's probably it. Sadly, it's on the Quest just because there's so many more numbers there, right? And it justifies the being there. It's on the main store on Quest. Happy that it is on there, honestly. But it, like I said, it's at the bare minimum cost is about 30 to 50k to do a port, right? I couldn't guarantee that Windlands 1, with it being so old, would necessarily write back its costs. Not at this stage, but it'd be really interesting to see how Windlands 2 does. If Windlands 2 does really incredibly well, we'll never know. You never know.
So,
You never know.
okay, listen, this is Brian Takeover right now, because this is the question that I've sort of been asking developers, and also tangentially asking the community in roundabout ways, because I don't want to like start something I can't finish. But I do want to ask you this while I've got you here, John. What if things like Windlands 1, a port of Windlands 1 for PSVR 2, was crowdfunded by the Without Parole community? And meaning, like, we set up a fundraiser. We basically fund $50,000 for the port, and everybody who supports but on a certain tier gets the game for free when it comes out. And then your game, even if you just break even, at least your game is on
that's
the
interesting.
store.
Well, first of all, who's going to port it? Right, it's like that's this VR Monkey, they're incredibly busy doing stuff, and they'd have
Right.
to grow. We couldn't give the time to it even at that cost. And realistically, a third party is going to want to make profit, right? So, like, even if the pure raw costs are 30 to 50, right? Somebody's going to want to make 40% profit so that they can carry on doing stuff. I don't know, just a reasonable level of profit. So yeah, no, tough really. Yeah, it's really tough, and it's hard. I wish that OpenXR was truly agnostic and worked across the systems, and it was just the way it is, And maybe that's something PlayStation could do, right? So that we could compile to the same output, and it would work across the board. But the TLCs are costly. It takes 3 months to go through complicated TLCs. If you were to read the document, it's about this thick. I'm sure people have said this, right? It's like a thick document, right? And there are things like what happens if you turn the control off in the middle of the game, what happens when you pause the game, what happens like in multiplayer. We've got to do things like reporting people and displaying what platform people are on, and if people are speaking, then you've got to have a visual that's constantly available in order to be cross-play, that somebody else is speaking, and that you can ban the right person if they're swearing at you or something. It's like, it's just and layers and layers and layers and layers of these, and there are so many TRCs at the moment, like pausing music when you switch on, and if people are playing background music, it's got to play. It's like just purely doing the port just takes a lot of time, and anybody that's been through TLCs, I've never passed them first time in all of the time we've done it. This time was pretty good. I think it started with maybe 7 failures, and then we did one with 3, and then those 3 came back with 1 more, and it's like you think you've got over the line, but they found another or whatever, and it's sort of like that. And we've got quite good at TLCs now. I think the more games we make, the better prepared we are. But it costs so much time and money. Even right now, leading up to today, making the trailers, and with Callum, who's our awesome community manager and joined Psytec this year, he's been incredibly busy with QA testing and backwards and forwards with little things and checking stuff, and yes, this is fixed, no, this isn't. I've spent time on this. I'm ultimate sign off for this, and I've spotted things that perhaps you need to know the game inside out to spot. But also I'm quite pleased with it. Right, there's some things that I don't know how much I didn't expect the head vibration to be as effective in Windlands 2 as it is. It's quite good. We've got a little bit of vibration when you're flying at full speed, which is quite nice for the wind past your ears feel. Nice. And getting hit, we just went full on and ramped it up full. You can turn it down in settings or whatever, but just boom, and it's a good feel when you get hit with a laser beam or whatever. So it's been quite interesting how much that's added to the game, because that's not on any other platform. It's a good PSVR 2 unique thing, right? And I just wanted to get crossplay in there. Just make sure that we addressed that. Again, not easy. We've got to pay for servers for the crossplay stuff, etc., etc., etc. So I don't want to get too down on it. It's just, it is quite an old game for us right now. I'm glad to bring it to the platform. I'm super excited to bring it to the platform. And honestly, it needed to be there sooner. But it is quite old for us now. It was released, quite a while ago, and we've moved on. It's hard to look back sometimes.
So to answer the Windlands 1 question. Probably not happening. even if we kickstarted it.
Yeah, I mean, I just even if you kickstarted it, it's like it does sadden me that the PlayStation 1 and PSVR 2 weren't backwards compatible in some way. It really, that would have been great, a great solve, right? But yeah, I mean, it's just going to take too much time. Honestly, you would if you saw what we were working on, you would be like, and you were in a room and you just said, right, what do you want these guys to work on? Do you want to work on this new thing? Windlands 2, Windlands 1, Crystal Rift. All the votes would be on the new thing. You'd be like, just ignore all that, John, and get on and get that out the door, please. So it's like, if you could see that, the votes would swing heavily towards not having anything to do with Windlands. But, it doesn't mean that I don't think it's an incredible game. I love the fact that we made that, and I love it.
All right, let me ask you this. And I have a feeling you're not going to be able to answer it, but you did say that you're working with Meta on this new game. So the question is will we be seeing it on PSVR 2 simultaneously with the Quest 3 release?
We have a version running on PSVR 2, so it's like it's definitely like not last night. In fact, we had it running on PSVR 2 before PC, so that shows you how we're feeling about that.
Nice.
So, it's not, I'm not committing to that right now. I think we need to see how Windlands 2 does. We need to see the state of the market. It's like that we don't want to burn money on if PlayStation start doubling down, we're absolutely doing it, right? If PlayStation start pulling back, it would be a fool's game to chase it, right? So, but we do have it running on it. We're absolutely, current intention is to bring it to PlayStation, right? It's like, we've just got to see how that goes and what it looks like when we get across that line. Yeah, in many ways it's easier now to port to PlayStation because our entire engines and stack are built with a lot of those things. So we've got that in mind from day one. Even silly things that you wouldn't think about, like subtitle systems and all sorts of other things that you need are built with PlayStation in mind. So
Twitcher follows up on his last tip and says, just to be clear, I'd pay full price for PSVR 2 versions of Windlands 1. I think we all would, Twitcher, but we don't want to
be a little sad now. But
we don't want to dwell on that. We're very excited for whatever's next week, and we also understand that how big is Psytec Games? It's not this 2,000 or even 200 person team.
No,
right?
We're still quite small. There's 5 full-time people, like PAYE, and then we can go up to about 20 something. But right now, this minute, we're all focused on the next title, right? And I'm hoping we'll grow and grow. We're already fairly far into the game after this game in terms of what our planning is and trademarking and various other things and GDDs and all sorts of boring things behind the scenes, but we're far enough into that we know what we're making next, and we're very excited about that too. But the fact is that we're all passionate about this particular game we're making right now, which is not to be announced today, but it's it's by far the best thing we've made, right? And so from that point of view, it's like, you look at the evolution where we've come, what we're making now. We are playing it every week. It is more, I can say some things. It's, we're leaning into our heritage. So, we're leaning into social action, multiplayer gaming, adventures. We are playing it all the time at the moment. We play it every day, certainly weekdays, and we play it like larger play sessions on Fridays where we get multiple sessions going and various other things. And it's hard to get us out of the game. Right? We actually have to say we've got to stop now. So it's that good that we're really enjoying it. And and everybody that's played it, various stakeholders and investors and Meta and stuff, they're all feeling the same. So I think we've got a really killer title on the way, and it's different. It's like unique enough, it's not like anything else you'd pick off the store. It's very much our DNA, and it's very different to anything we've done before. We've got some really cool mechanics in there that nobody's done before, and I just can't wait to share it. Really can't wait to share it, but yeah, it just takes us a little bit of time to get to the point where we're ready to share it.
And that's
we'll start getting close to that.
I think that's what's kind of beautiful about the whole VR industry, right? Like, I mean, there's a lot of people have complained. I even saw, here, let me just get the name right. Mike Normansell in the chat talking about how he's tired of VR and how he used to defend it, and now it just feels like a gimmick. And I understand that mentality, right? Because everybody wants these bigger games. Everybody wants the games that you can find on flat screen. They want to be able to play those types of games in VR. And so we've dealt with all these like kind of smaller games, smaller studios. But what we're seeing over the last few years, and I always use Vitruvius VR as an example with Marvels and Shadow Legend and now Arcanage, like we're seeing these studios like Psytec grow up in front of our eyes. Right. And we're watching the evolution of these studios go from like these really small indie teams to becoming triple I or single A. And so I think that's kind of beautiful. Like if you're patient, then you're watching this evolve right in front of your eyes with every game release from a studio. And so, and hearing you talk about your new project this way makes me go, "Yep, Psytec is the next Vitruvius."
Yeah, and I'm excited, that we're doing IP, our own IP, right? Not that I'm not, couldn't see a world where we couldn't do the next decent IP or whatever. I think it's good that we're doing our own IP. It's allowing us to create and innovate in the space, which, do something different and exciting, and something where people hopefully will be attracted to go and check out just because it's new and exciting. And the fact that I know what we want to do afterwards as well is really exciting. But if I look at, if you just look at pure budgets, we're sort of doubling every time, which is quite exciting in itself. But also, if you were to see us working on a day-to-day basis, our iteration process, our pure vision, our things that we don't, we know to avoid, the things that we want to double down on, the ambitions and some things that maybe some people would think were impossible, we've managed to pull off. Yeah, I agree with you, Brian. The beauty here is when you start seeing companies like Endreams and XL Games and Shell, and I could carry on. Honestly, there's such a list of mature VR studios now, just getting better. And there are going to be some mistakes along the way. I mean, people are going to make hiccups or whatever, but hopefully we all just get stronger and stronger. You're seeing the birth of the new AAAs, and it just, I think all of that is looking really healthy. I've got there's showcases coming out, so but there's so much faith in what I'm seeing. I saw one of the best games I've seen, period, last week at sort of in a closed room. Sadly, I can't really talk about much in VR last week, and it shocked me. And I sort of like side glanced at an investor that I knew was in the room. You know what I mean? And we looked at each other and we're like nodding. Right? Okay, so it's, there's another cool thing. Wow. It's like. And yeah, there's this stuff I can talk about. It's Unseen Diplomacy 2 is coming out. It looks really, really cool. I've seen a bit more than probably some people in that, but I haven't had a demo or anything yet, but it looks really, really exciting and cool. Yeah, they're the people that made Smash It Plunder, if you remember that on PSVR 1.
I do remember Smash It Plunder. I didn't love that game.
They're making bigger and better stuff.
I'm glad to see they're still around doing stuff.
Yeah, well, they've been funded for their newest thing, and that looks really cool and exciting, and a lot of people want to see that. Yeah, so I'm seeing. I spoke to Patrick. Again, I've been to develop last week, so I sat down with Patrick for a little bit and hit their latest games out and coming to PlayStation VR2 as well. Patrick's the owner, CEO of Endreams, so I spent a bit of time with him chatting. Every time I speak to him, I'm feeling more positive. Bobby at XR Games came. I had a VR breakfast, so I spoke to him a little bit as well, and it's just like excited to see what they're doing because they're doing the new Hitman game, and I'm a particular fanboy of the Zombieland headshot thing, so he was telling me the story of how that came around, and the day that they worked out the double shot to freeze and things, and that was quite exciting to see Bobby and what they're up to. I'm excited what they're doing as a studio, and they're quite a large studio now. Yeah, lots of friends there, and then just speaking to content creators and what they're excited about and what they've got on the horizon because they see stuff I don't see, and I don't think there's any negativity. I've grown up with VR a bit as well now, right? 11 years of VR. The way I look at it is it's carved it's carving a percentage of people's playtime. Some people more than others, right? But there's always going to be something that will bring everybody back to it, and that they enjoy doing, and that's great. It belongs. I think it's got a lot of growth left, a lot. And I think there's certain games that are proving that, maybe Gorilla Tag and things like that there's like hundreds of million, 100 million active monthly users or whatever, right? It's like, but they'll grow up and move into the next thing, and there's a new. God, I'm banging on, aren't I? But I'm super optimistic. I've never been more optimistic. If you look at the data right now, and you look at the people that I speak to daily and the platforms and everything. Now is the biggest time for VR, and its growth period's inbound. We're going to have hopefully a Quest Lite come out soon. It's the best kept secret, really. I don't know any details about it, so I can speak relatively open. But I'm expecting that to be announced. I'm over in MetaConnect at September, and expecting that all to be announced soon enough and start to hit the market. And yeah, AR headsets getting really interesting. It's like the point where I'm going to start buying into that because there's watching movies on the tube and stuff and on planes is cool. But yeah, I could carry on. I think gaming is looking good. It's never been so good in VR that you can make really good money. I've spoke to more people this year that are making in excess of 25 million a year on one title than I've ever spoke to, and So you just got to make really good games that resonate with the people. And I don't necessarily think that's AAA's. I think that is, and in fact, I was surprised. I spoke to one person, the guy who made. I've become quite good friends with him. I want to say it's again, Niels and anyway, I've spoke to some PlayStation VR titles, and they're like in the top 25 and doing really well every month. So there are really good titles right now on the PlayStation doing really well for developers, especially if their costs are low, making good profit.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand. I think we all expected, or at least I expected, when PSVR2 come out, like to really push the industry forward and really, knowing what eye tracked foveated rendering was going to do. And I think we all thought that like, oh, this is going to like really propel VR into the future and make it happen faster. But then the price point and a few other things kind of stop that momentum very quickly. But that is the thing. It's like VR is still growing. VR is better than it's ever been. VR is bigger than it's ever been. But I think what people don't realize is just it's taking longer to get to where we want it to be than expected. And so I think when people see that, that's what they kind of get down in the dumps about.
It takes a long time, right? It's like I can tell you that this current title was conceived, before Windlands 2 got out of the door. The title of it and the basic thoughts. I mean, it's changed a lot. It's probably been rewritten in terms of that. But if I look at where it is now, but the GDD, the title, and was written like a long time. So it's like it's maybe taken 6 years plus to get to this point. And there's a lot of, you've got to fund these things. I've already said it's a 7-figure title. Once you're over £1 million, where do you get the money from, right? It's like you've still got to pay people, and you've got. So it takes a little bit of time to put the deals on the table, go through the details, so to speak, and make sure that's all validated. It just takes time. And there are many routes to that now. I think our route needs to be venture capitalist. It's we want to grow quite large and do, like you say, we're on a path to be AAA. I want to be a $1 billion studio doing awesome VR content, unique IP, and special stuff, right? So to get there for the choices that I've made, we need capital, investment, publishing. Meta are a great partner to have in that. I've got some real good friends at Meta now, and known them for 11 years, so that's great. And the relationships there are really good. And I just want to continue them voting for us and helping support, and we co-fund that because we do want to make profit. We do want our own IP. We do, it's not like we want them to pay for everything or give it or somebody else own the IP. And there are lots of difficult choices. It's tempting to do, work for hire, and we need to avoid that if we're going to make our own IP and special content, right? And it's tempting because there's a lot of money out there and work to hire. It's tempting to do IP work, but IP can be really costly. You can give away 50% of your profits or whatever just to the IP before platform holders. So, and it can be more than that, for special titles. It can be the deals aren't necessarily skewed towards the people making the content, right? They're skewed towards the owner of the IPs. So that's tough. Eric Thullum was who I was thinking about earlier, by the way. The guy who made
How did I know? How did I know that's who you were talking about?
Well, I've hung out with Eric quite a few times. I saw him at Reboot, Develop, and I saw him at GDC. I started to like Eric a lot, and I hope I get to spend more time with him this year as well. But there's lots of people I know in the industry, but Eric's certainly somebody really cool. Couldn't remember his name for a minute though.
I don't know Eric very well. I know Ancient Dungeon very well. His game
takes me 6 times to remember everybody's name at least. But Eric's definitely on that list.
Dude, Ancient Dungeon is just a phenomenal game. And during a time where like roguelites were just almost like a bad word, like every single game coming out was a roguelite. Here Ancient Dungeon comes along, and I'm like, I loved it so much, I could not stop playing it, and that never happens to me in VR anymore. It's just even playing Resident Evil 4, I'm like, okay, I played an hour. I'll take a break for a little while, or I'll come back to this tomorrow or something like that. Ancient Dungeon was every time I walked away from it, I found myself right back in it. Ancient Dungeon is a Brian Paul game, and dude, that for me,
I'm happy to report that Eric's a wonderful guy, and I've had many, many, many lovely beers with him. So he's a nice guy. We went out for a meal together as well. We went to some place in Dubrovnik together as well. I like Eric a lot, and I hope to bump into him on the road soon. But yeah, his game's awesome too. I play his games.
Well, I really hope that he's selling well on PSVR 2 because he deserves it.
I think so, yes. I mean, he was the first person I bumped into that actually turned around some of my perspective, because I don't know the figures. I'm not on PSVR2 yet, so I don't have that insight. And he was asking what I was doing. And I said, come into PSVR2, and he said, he shared that he was doing all right on it. So, it's good that people can. So I'm hoping that'll work out, and we'll make some money off it, and certainly repay enough to make sure that VR Monkey makes some profit, because that's what that allows them to do more, really, truthfully. And I'm quite happy. I'm surprised we haven't partnered on something, actually, because I think with our game design vision and stuff, with it, we could do something. But I think also I've learned a lot about that, and Psytec's natural instinct to quality levels is wanting to push harder against AAA. For our next game, we have hired some incredible talent. Music's coming from somebody working at Disney, and Assassin's Creed person did some of the characters. It's like we're trying to hire really, really good talent to do what we're doing. Our sound engineers from Creative Assembly, and so we're just trying to. Yeah, I'm dropping internal stuff, but I'm trying to evidence that Psytec are trying to push all the limits towards AAA as well. I don't know whether I'd call this next game AAA yet. I think that's a certain push, but definitely moving towards AA, and we're going to keep going in that direction and getting better and better. Hopefully, it's a bit of a we've got a certain amount of time, certain amount of budget. You've got to do the best you can within that, and hopefully we've got this right to do everything we can here. But yeah, we're trying to, if anything, we're 10 times the budget for the game following that. If we can get there, then I think you'll start to see the AAA out of us.
T-Mac, the Game Cat, with the viewer takeover question in our Discord. Don't forget, guys, this is viewer takeover. The entire point of this show.
I'm going to stop talking.
Is to read your question. No, don't stop talking, because I can't wait to hear your answers for some of these questions. Is to, like, we do this during Gamescast, right? We always interrupt the show to read tips or read questions from the chat. But man, like, there's just never enough time in a Gamescast, right? Like, sometimes those shows will be 3 hours plus, and I still don't feel like we tackled everything I wanted to tackle. So that's what we're doing here. T-Mac, the Game Cat, over on Discord, writes #viewer takeover. Besides price, why is PSVR 2 held to such high standards in mainstream media? His question was much longer than that, but I feel like the rest of his question would influence our answers.
It's a AAA console, isn't it? I mean, it's known for being a AAA console, so of course, people want to see AAA VR out of it, and it is a very capable device, right?
Yeah,
it's like it can run, virtually AAA quality native due to its 45 reproduction. Hence a Pro, that would be nice, wouldn't it? Imagine running at 90 native. I've played all the Resident Evil games that I can, certainly 4, 7, and 8. This story's there, and you can go back to the old iPad, old stuff to probably hear those. But I mean, I'd like to run them native, right? It's like, why not?
Oh, I mean, absolutely.
So of course it should be held to high standards, and frankly, at the best VR is high fidelity, right? It's just that high fidelity VR isn't that cheap, truthfully. It's like you have to buy the headset, costs what, $599 ish?
Yeah.
I don't know what it is right now, and PlayStation isn't that cheap, and it's outreach for a lot of people.
Well, yeah, let's talk about the PlayStation 5. That is a $500 console, $550 or whatever it is. I don't even know anymore. And the number of AAA games on there is, I would say, 5% of the game library. Right? I would say 95% of what you see on PlayStation 5, if you go through the store and you see what's released day after day after day after day after day, it's just, I mean, there's 100 indie titles, stuff you've never heard of before, which is fine, which is great, right? Indie titles are great. They're keeping the industry alive, but you're going to see 100 titles for every one AAA or single A game that you run into. So why in VR does PSVR 2 take such shit for having the exact same ecosystem? If not, I think we actually have a better ratio in VR, honestly.
Yeah. I don't know. There's some great VR on PSVR 2 that undeniably would keep anybody busy for a long period of time. You just look at any of the top 25s, and there's plenty to deal with, right?
Yep. We had so many games in our top 25 that we're considering doing a top 50 at the end of the year.
Yeah, there's nothing. The library's been well supported. The sad thing is Sony not pushing that.
Yeah.
Why aren't they doing the top 25 games? Why aren't they doing special showcases, right, regularly, just on VR? Forget bundling with the AAA. Why aren't they putting adverts on the telly? Why aren't they, even if it is a loss leader for them, it's not about today. It's about version 3, version 4, version 5, and the evolving naturally of humanity towards it. So just start pushing. It's a bit like chicken and the egg, isn't it? Although the egg came first, apparently. But it's a bit about chicken and the egg. It's like without we have the whole conversation about that. Without pushing, you're not attracting the audience that converts and eventually pushes it over, right? So you've got to invest behind it. And I honestly think Sony do get that, right? Because otherwise they would not have made the PlayStation VR2. Exactly. PlayStation VR2 is the perfect example of like PlayStation VR wanted it okay, but was not a big money leader for them, and it did not appear high on their, on the P&L ledger or whatever. But they made number 2, so somebody somewhere got it right. And there were internal sponsorship teams. I have managed to have a few conversations with Sony people about the story of where all that came from internally, and I've got confidence that there'll be somebody else helming it at some point that will get it too and look at the long-term strategy rather than the short-term one. It's quite interesting that Sony themselves, outside of PSVR 2, because Sony's a big organization, but they're doing R&D into enterprise VR 2, and that sort of cascades. You don't have an enterprise VR headset without understanding how to apply that to a commercial low value, low cost, sorry, not low value, definitely high value, low cost headset. So, I have got optimism that at some point there'll be a shuffle or a leader, or maybe there already is right now and we're just not seeing it. Maybe the push is when the next AAA titles come out for them for VR, and it's just all aligns right and the zeitgeist, because I do feel that they started off okay. There are a couple of good ads. Remember the Ozzy Osbourne one, and then it's sort of like, where's it gone? But I do know there were restructures internally, and the guy in charge of it, and they've closed some studios. And AAA as a whole is really struggling right now. Forget Sony. Right. It's like as a whole, there's some AAAs that just haven't hit it. They've released stuff, and you only need to look in the press of how much costs of production have got out of control. People releasing IP that was going to be a sure hit, it's just fell off a cliff. And then random good news things that people just don't understand where that came from. Zeitgeist that is hard to understand, right? Alongside the economy issues and all the rest of it. Prof.
You must have seen the most recent Android Central article about PSVR 2, where they were talking about how Sony isn't supporting PSVR 2 and you should throw yours away. Whatever the headline was, it was something similar to that. And then in the article, they had mentioned that their sources say that there's 2 first-party PSVR 2 games in the works. And all the naysayers out there were like, oh, we thought there were 0. There's 19 first-party studios still, even after shutting down a couple. 19 first-party studios, and there's 2 PSVR 2 games in the works. Like
that just makes me sad though when you get like the best title on PlayStation VR 1 and they release something and it's like just that alone, the Astro bot, right, should have totally been VR, and I just don't get it. Sure. It's like tell you what, give me a few months inside Sony to re-strategize, and the world would be a different place. And yeah, not easy, and yeah, it's going to cost money and effort and marketing and strategy and all the rest of it. But just please, somebody listen and just do the right things inside Sony, because it's not far off being the mega hit it needs to be. It just a few key decisions, and it will be an absolute runaway success.
Dude, I have a hard time believing like the Japan studio basically got shuttered, and a lot of the people who were working at Japan studio got moved into Asobi, and now Asobi is the big team over there. So how do they justify PlayStation VR 2 when they've got AAA studios struggling or having issues? Or I heard about a studio that got shut down internally because their game wasn't quite up to scratch, and they were so nervous about burning more money on it and failing. Right, and it's like, how do you do? Yeah, but how do you deal with that? I mean, purely from it's two-sided, right? We're looking at our bubble, and it's that we're really excited about it. But on the other side, the AAA's not quite where it needs to be right now, and there's a lot of reshifting going on over there. Yeah. So when you get the compound there and the economy issues and interest rates for houses, and it's hard, changes in governments, and all of that cascades into this really tough position that
I can flippantly say, put me at the leadership and I'll solve. But as soon as I'm put there, I'll be like, well, what are you going to do about this studio that's burning money over there and this game that we're not quite sure about and what that, and you'd probably make the same decisions. You'd probably say, okay, well, we have to make tough decisions, consolidate our best people, put our stuff on the best titles, probably not spend as much marketing as we'd normally spend. I was gobsmacked to see that Sony have booked space at Tokyo Game Show this year, and I can only say, well, that's going to be exciting because they haven't booked anything. I can't remember the last Sony Dev Day I went to. Everything's virtual now, right? And yet pre-COVID, at least twice a year I'd be doing some dev event with them, and I'd go, seeing some push, and it's like it's just, I think we're still seeing the back end of COVID, sadly.
Yeah, no, I definitely understand that. Just to back up a little bit, I think my point about closing Studio Japan and kind of funneling a lot of talent into Asobi was that I would just be absolutely shocked if Astrobot, the flat screen PlayStation 5 game that they revealed and everybody's excited for, I would just be shocked if that was the only game the studio was working on. If there's not a smaller division within Asobi making Astrobot Rescue Mission 2 for PSVR 2 or a port of the first game. I just can't imagine a team this big only working on one game for the last 6 years. Is right, and it would also answer the question, why the fuck isn't this on PlayStation VR 2, right? And I know that makes sense to say, but nothing at Sony makes sense. So I don't have a lot of faith even when I say that.
I have a really weird, unfortunate perspective on this, Brian. It's like VR is absolutely killing it in my perspective. There's stuff coming down the line that is absolutely incredible. Mm-hmm. But the stuff you see today is decisions from 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
Right? So you can bear in mind everything that's coming out today 3 or 4 years ago. Right, so I'm seeing decisions today about the next 3 or 4 years that are bigger and more exciting than I've ever seen. Right, so it's like if anything, everything is going 10 times. Right, so it's like if you think about that from a pure excitement point of view, there's 10 times more stuff. Either 10 times better quality or 10 times more stuff happening or 10 times more, headset quality or whatever. Like all of that's happening right now. So the stuff I'm seeing is nothing but optimism, right? And know enough games that are coming down the pipeline. That's only my pure, tiny perspective on the industry to know that there's some incredibly exciting stuff I'm waiting for, and I can't wait to see. As I say, this week I saw one that came out of the blue, and I was like, oh, geez, that's going to be cool. And it's like close-ish to release, right? It won't be that long before it's here. So I couldn't be any more optimistic. So I sound negative. I just want PlayStation to step up the game. That's it. Hardware revision, PlayStation 5 Pro. Start bundling, start pushing this thing, get the price right, and it will fly again because there's enough people that can bring content. And really, it needs more limelight. But when I look at it. We had a famous computer game store called Game, and they've shut so many of them now. So physical stores are pretty much closed, right? And you only have to go into your local stores to see the effect of lack of boxes and stuff. And Perp's a good example, going more towards keeping that alive, right? But you only have to look, and it's hard to, it's very hard to get any attention to go and look at a store. I mean, when was the last time anybody randomly went and looked at the PlayStation store to see what was out this week, right? You need to get your discoverability queue from news, shows like yourself, reading Reddit, stuff in your X timeline or whatever. But ultimately, the biggest people that can do that are the platforms themselves, right? They can put stuff on the TV. They can put stuff on mega showcases. They can put stuff in their blog and reach tens of thousands of people instantly. And if they don't do that and do it well, then the discoverability is poor, and then that sort of like the drivers and the fuel doesn't keep it going, right? So it's like it's tough. It is tough, and I've actually always thought PlayStation's discoverability is one of the weaker discoverabilities. They don't have compare it to Steam, it doesn't have like dynamic front pages suggesting what similar games you've played before, and it's like they're way behind on discoverability.
Even the search bar sucks. Like everything about the PlayStation Store bothers me.
yeah, it's just way behind, wish list thing, and then suggesting stuff that you've put on your wish list is poor. Doing stuff like, you've played games like this, and this one's come out. This is popular with your friends. It's like a lot of the other platforms are a lot better at that stuff. While I've been sat here on Discord, so and so is playing X. One of my friends, right? And it's like that is doing more than PlayStation is doing right now. And it's like maybe half of that stuff is there. It's just not done well. I mean, I've used the PlayStation app, so I'm not surprised that it's not done that well. It's like really probably time to refresh their perspective and do something new, and and work harder on not just VR, actually, just the whole store. Just get it more fluid and more capable.
But what I hear you saying is, for people who are concerned about PSVR2 and Sony's commitment to it, like, not to worry. Like the what's happening in the future is all.
I mean, I'm still optimistic. I just want to see the evidence come out.
Yeah.
Right, and honestly, I'm a bit like others. When the Astrobot was announced, I was like, "Come on." I mean, you're either not in touch with your community, or you're not trying at this point, right? Because that was just the ultimate failing. One of the best games they've ever released forget PSVR, on their platform, full stop, was Astrobot, and I could name more, right? Farpoint and blah blah blah, and the I think. Sadly, that studio may not exist anymore, but the one where you go down. No, when you're going down the corridor and you slide, and it came out of the demo disc and then became a full game. Gangsters, and you're in the back of the car and stuff.
Blood and Truth and
Blood and Truth, yeah. So
they got shut
they had
down.
some amazing games there, exactly. And I just don't, why wouldn't you be doubling down on all of that and doing something even more amazing and stuff? I really love Capcom and what they've done with Resident Evil. I cannot praise that studio enough honestly, because we need more people doing quality VR and seeing the light, and I'd love to honestly spend some time speaking to them, but I imagine if we did speak to them, they'd love VR, they see the future, and they want to bet on it long term, and that's what they're doing, and they're doubling and tripling and quadrupling down on it, and it's slowly, it's not even slowly, it's paying off for them, right? Because people are seeing it. So yeah, it's not about PlayStation VR 2.5 or 3 or 4. It's really just the long play here is that the more people that put effort into it, the more amazing it will be down the line.
I think you already covered most of this, but I want to throw in this viewer takeover question from Shen Miaozo over on Twitter, just to see if we have anything left to say about it. He says, Sony future-proofed VR2 with features most other HMDs still don't have. Is it possible they're playing the long game with a couple first-party games at launch to prove its capability, and then quietly funding next-gen upgrades of various third-party games while the market grows organically?
These are really good. They're just really good.
Yeah, I played like 5 of them, just like hanging around here for some reason.
Yeah, they're outstanding. What would I do on a version 2? I'd probably make this button a bit more of a analog squeeze.
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably do that, because it's just a click really at the moment. Other than that, I actually wouldn't get rid of this, because I think it's a protector for punching walls. So it's not, taking them off might be a mistake on the other controllers. But yeah, I certainly wouldn't change much about them. And from a programming point of view, they've got great haptics in them. They're great. They're amazing. So they've done a really, really, like, compared to moves, these are outstanding, right? I wouldn't change them at all.
I will say, John, I've heard from some of the cats out there who are much manlier men than I, with much bigger hands than I, and they have a hard time getting their whole fucking mitt in there, which is not. This is again. I feel like PlayStation perfectly designs everything for my head, for my hands. I always feel like the target demographic.
My God, how big are their hands?
This is what I'm saying.
Quite big. I think the idea that it's a protective shell you could take off would be quite cool, truthfully.
Yeah.
There are a lot of examples, they could do a version 2 where you could like snap a protective shell on, or whatnot. Maybe they just lose it completely, and I'm over worrying about protective shells. But even if they were just the controller, it would be. These are great. So, and yeah, I love the. What do I love about it? I love the vibration in the headset. Every headset should have that.
Yep. And eye tracking. Every headset should have eye tracking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. It is revolutionary in the Apple Vision Pro, just being able to look and click at things and track your hands. So yeah, absolutely. That's a great headset. There's nothing wrong with the headset from a God, it. I mean, I have to be honest and candid. It's not quite the right price point. It needs to be that $299 almost immediately, right? And it needs to be pushed, and then it will fly off the shelves more. And yeah, I mean, there's little things. It's just really. I haven't changed my perspective on this since launch. I wish the IP, I wish the sweet spot was a little bit bigger. I wish that's it, really. It's not really much of a complaint. Just like you have to be very, very, very get it right to have a really good experience, and not everybody's going to take the effort to do that. So people get mixed bag on that.
Well, let me take Shen Miao's question in a little bit of a different direction, though. I still think this is what he's asking. Do you think? I mean, I feel like we're not going to see PSVR 3 anytime soon. I feel like we could have PlayStation 6 come out and we still plug our PSVR 2 directly into the USB-C port, and we're good to go. Like we already have the thing, the headset that we're going to be using on PlayStation 6. You know what I mean? And so does it feel future-proof to the point? Of course, there'll be revisions along the way of PSVR 2 specifically. I just don't think we're going to see a PlayStation VR 3 anytime soon.
I think it might be outside of Sony's problem here. It's like the best in class is micro LED and flat optics, right? And I think we started off this conversation. It's like $400 to $500 just for the optics, and then you've got micro LEDs are still $400, right? It's like, so you start off with a price range that either you can't, we just simply wouldn't make that headset because it's way outside of the $299 already before you even start with any of the other stuff, the controllers and the whatever. So I think the problem. It's almost like it'll come back on itself, and maybe that's where they are on it. It's like just, but if you're making that decision, then you need to get a $399 version of the current headset. All right, just need to make that happen, and you need to support it and push it at that price because that's the mass adoption price. And if you can get the cost base to be a loss leader at $199 and still make money off the content you're producing, classic console territory there.
Yep.
Then you're cooking with gas. So I wouldn't. If I was Sony, I definitely wouldn't give up it. I'd just do that. I would make a cheaper version of what they've got, but as good. Get it to the $299 and start bundling it and pushing it. But also, I'd probably wait until the PlayStation 5 Pro came out to do all that, because then everybody's going to get faster, better graphics, 90 native, all those little tricks. I would, if I am making a couple of games, I'd release them on that. Because that's where the bang's going to be. Because they could optimize them for the PlayStation 5 Pro too. So it's like, I would do that. So maybe there is a truth to all that, and there is a good decision being made inside. Maybe. I'm hoping so. Like, put John in charge for a while, I'll sort it. But yeah, just make this $299. Take this, make it $299 immediately. I don't care what you have to do, but don't lose any quality from it.
Right.
Optic slightly wider, please.
Like, well, we're gonna
slightly wider. Make it $299 and bundle it with the PlayStation 5 Pro with a couple of awesome games on the way. I'm actually looking forward to that. I hope that the upgrade for Gran Turismo comes, because that would make my day. Like,
yeah. I mean, I already fucking love the way that Gran Turismo looks, but for it to run at 90 native, that would be incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible.
If it runs at 90 native, and perhaps it could even push it a little further due to, maybe it does. I don't know anything about it honestly, but maybe it does. More ray tracing or something. They could just push it a little bit further as well as getting to 90. That would be so fucking cool, wouldn't it? Just want that to happen. And two minor requests. If anybody from Sony's listening, make the heads turn, please. There's nothing worse than being on a starting grid or passing someone and you can't turn to them. It's like my number one request, please, if not be quiet about it. And then the other one is on the go-karts.
Have you and Miles...
Keep the player LOD. They disappear at 400 feet in the distance. What the hell?
Oh, the head
keep
disappears,
the player in the car.
right?
Yeah, the whole body disappears. It's like, what? Just leave it on. You've got to a force power. It's only a go-kart. It would be two very, very simple things to change. I could list some more if anybody... Is it Polyarch? I think it's Polyarch. Polyphony, that's right.
Polyphony. Yeah, boy, it must be a British thing. You and Miles have the same complaint every time we talk about Gran Turismo. Like, wish you could see people turning their heads.
It's such a simple thing. Just let them turn their heads. It's like, why would anybody make a racing car game and not put that in? It's like one vector. You don't have to do leaning or anything. You just like turn and nod, right? It's like just enough. It's like at this point, I swear blind it's because people are concerned about like I don't know, gestures or something. But it's like VR. It's like the gestures are everywhere. Just get people to that. Should we answer some more questions?
I think
can see a load myself.
I'm
Go for it.
Oh, you see some questions? Throw them out there, man. What do you got?
What have I got? Hang on, I've got to scroll down and refresh now, really, so that I don't miss out the old ones. Bear with me. Go on if you've got one.
Yeah, let's go. We got some easy ones ahead of us. GoatLou78 writes hashtag viewer takeover. How many hours on average do you spend in the headset every week?
Oh my god, that's a lot. A lot.
A lot. I mean, it's your job, so like you're.
Well, I've played hundreds of hours of our next game already. I'm still enjoying it, so that's good. Yeah, a lot. But I do it like I went on the Apple Vision Pro yesterday, so I'm not. I haven't done anything today, truthfully. But yesterday I went on the Apple Vision Pro for a while. I played the the DC thing, which is like What If, I think it's called, where it opens up portals and brings DC characters into your kitchen, in my case, through portals, and there was a whole conversation and stuff there. I watched I downloaded Ready to Watch, because I'm on my next travel. I'm going to watch the Live Die Repeat in 3D, so I downloaded that while I was on it as well. And then actually check some. I'm checking emails and Discord while all the headsets on. That headset has some killer features that people have no idea is coming. It's a rather bizarre operating system. That me and do you know Mike from VR Oasis?
Yep.
He's a reasonable friend of mine. He owns a Vision Pro, so I FaceTimed him, got his number, and we went into the same space together as virtual personas and looked at F1 cars and watched movies and did all this stuff, because anything with share play just sort of works seamlessly. That operating system is killer and rapidly patching. So like there's a patch at least every few weeks, but every month. I think they're on version beta 3 of operating system 2 now, and I just sat on board. This is what I did yesterday. This is how stunning that headset is. After I'd done all that, I switched on. They've just released the Bora Bora environment, so I switched that on. So I'm sat on a beach in Bora Bora, and I am just sat there, and I thought, this is so incredible from a visual detail point of view. I was trying to take the inspiration from it. So I'm sat there long enough to see the clouds are moving in front of the mountain, really, really slowly. To see the leaves of the palm tree are waving backwards and forwards. To see the sand. I'm just like, you just can't comprehend how high resolution and how detailed and how just incredible they've done those things, and it just made me take away some of the earnings from my own games, our games from Psytec, about we've really got to get more parallax in the world and more detail in the world in some of those things. It's remarkable, that headset. So yeah, I did that yesterday, but I do play games a lot. I brought the last games I brought I play as often as I can.
Yep.
There's a lot of learning from playing other people's games as well.
I'll tell you, I'm looking forward to the fall. Not just because of all the games that are on the way, but because I am not built for the heat. Like even right now, it's not crazy hot out. It's not crazy hot out, but I've got the AC pumping in here. I got the blinds shut. Like I should be okay, but I'm still like just a little too warm to want to put something on my head and play a game and be active. And so, but when the fall rolls around, that's like when I kick into high gear and I do everything. So I feel very fortunate that there's not like a huge rush of games coming out this summer. But yeah, I mean, as far as like without Parole goes, I'm actually sitting here at my computer writing and editing video far more than I'm actually in VR playing a game, especially when games like Infinite Insight are 2 hours long, right? And so I play through the entire game, and then I'm like, okay, well now for the next 15 hours, I got to write and edit about a 2 hour game. So,
how are you finding the reviews?
How am I finding the
enjoy
reviews?
It? Yeah, enjoying playing games still.
Yeah. It's easy to get burnt out and get frustrated with developers who are stuck in early VR mentalities where they're scared of motion sickness, they're scared of everything. We're still doing node to node teleportation. They haven't quite that lack of polish for the Infinite Insight. I think there's a severe lack of polish for something that's very, very basic. And I'm like, how did you screw this up? Like it could have at least been a polished basic game, but it was an unpolished basic game, and it's just there's a level of frustration that just makes me want to reach through the screen and choke people out sometimes.
Yeah, I get that, and it's like I get the other argument as well. It's like Danny at Cloudhead, and and well, there's many examples of people here, but they're arguing that new players coming into VR, you don't want to give them a bad experience, and they want to see the such. And then on the opposite side, I'm very much on the opposite side. It's like when you've been around VR a while, you just want it full on, right? It's just like Windlands is obviously full on.
Yeah.
We do everything we can to make that comfortable, but ultimately it's not designed for new players. It's designed for players that want to be set free and do crazy stuff with a bow and arrow in midair. And if you see what we're working on, you'd see that we aren't afraid of pushing things even further and doing crazy stuff. And I think that's a good thing. It's what makes us excited about playing games as well. It's like doing things that you can't do in real life, and and pushing into that. So I'm not afraid of any of that, but I totally get the opposite argument. It's like, if people come and play our games first, it's like it's the worst experience for them, maybe. But the hardware's got so much better. I was joking the other day. I had a drummer from a famous band come and play in the DK1 once in my house. Right, it's very weird. I used to live in Maidavale, central London, so it's like you live around the corner. Can we come and have a go on your virtual reality headset? And he played it for a little while. Didn't play very much at all, and then laid on my bed for about 2 hours. It's like they're a really famous band. I don't want to name them, but it's just like the drummer's like just ill on my bed for every hour. It's like we've come a long way, both in learning about comfort, but also, I think I don't play down the consumer. I treat everybody like nobody's stupid. It's like they know what they're getting into, and yeah, there's like casual gamers that perhaps are staying away from VR, but they're probably staying away because they know it's not for them, and that's fine. But the hardcore absolutely know what they want, and I think if I was to define what Psytec are trying to do, we are selling product to hardcore players and hopefully making their dreams come true and wishes come true, and providing a great game that builds on what they want, right?
Yeah, I mean, I've said it countless times on this channel, but I bought a PSVR 1 at launch. I didn't know what I was getting into. It's like the second PlayStation VR was announced, I pre-ordered it. Like, I didn't even know if it was going to be any good or not. I had no idea what I was getting into. And then, of course, day one at launch, I'm looking at the PlayStation Store, and I'm realizing I just want to play everything I can get my hands on. Everything. And I think I bought every single launch title there was to buy. And I played a bunch of games, man. I played Drive Club VR, which really tested my VR legs. I played Here They Lie, which really tested my VR legs. And then at the end of it all, I played Windlands. And I just remember getting in there and hitting the jump button is one of the first things I did, not even realizing, like, let's just hit all the buttons and see what happens. And like my body went up and my stomach was still down here. And I was like, oh my God, like I just drove around these racetracks in Drive Club. And like, I remember I actually fell over on my couch when I took the first turn in Drive Club, because like I was preparing like this for the centrifugal force, which there was none, right? I was reacting to a turn as if I was in a real car, and I fell over on my couch. And so I was going through all these intense experiences, but none of them were as intense or as cool as when I hit the jump button in Windlands for the first time. And I was like, holy shit, that single jump felt like a roller coaster ride, which I had also done in Rush of Blood. And this was still a cooler feeling. So I was so happy that Windlands was there at launch for the PSVR 1 to really push things as far as I could go and give a new VR player this opportunity to see like what a first person platformer felt like in VR.
Exactly, and I think that is a good thing. I think it's a good thing it's there. It's like it's great. It's great. I mean, I can't get enough of full-on locomotion games. So.
There's plenty of job simulator games out there for the people who are just getting their legs. There's plenty of those games. If you focus on that stuff, I think you're not paying attention to you're not paying attention to where the puck is going. And
I mean, interestingly. I mean, you'll definitely click with this because you've seen enough VR now. You can almost tell a good VR game within a few minutes, right? You can look at it, just watch a game, and you can go, okay, well, they understand VR mechanics, they understand quality, they understand that you can pick the cup up and drink it, right? They get it, right? They've got the detail there, they've got that level of quality, and I don't, it's really hard to pull that off. It takes a lot of effort. takes a lot of effort, right? And a lot of the lower budget games don't have the time or budget to necessarily pull it off, and definitely don't have the skill. And there's been some AAA ports, and I could name names there, but I really don't want to, but that have not hit that mark. Even as though they've tried to get advice and they've tried to, but they've just not had the experience to get it right. Just get it right and that quality right straight away. And I feel that, I'm sure you do too, as soon as I boot a game up, I can play it for 30 seconds and I can know whether they've got it or not. And if they haven't, I'm immediately put off. And it's tough though, because it's not like you can write it down in a book. It's not like you can say, please don't use laser pointers, and people listen and understand why. It's like, or please make sure that you've got comfort options for left and right-handers. Please make sure that you've got joystick swappable between left and right-hand as well as left and right-handed. Please make sure that you've got upfront comfort options, so I don't need to start with crappy options that don't suit me. Although I'm surprised they haven't solved that. I was thinking about it the other day. I saw an option in the PlayStation where you can go into PlayStation, you can preset basic options like subtitles. So you go to accessibility and say what default subtitles do you want, what default whatever you want. I have no idea why operating systems don't have I'm John, it knows I'm John, I'm logged on as John. Why doesn't it have my default comfort turn, smooth or snap? It's like we've definitely got to the point, right, where that should be operating system level stuff, not per game and missing out of a lot of games. It should just be part of a TLC that you've got to support smooth and snap, and that's that, right? It's like, and it's just set at operating system level. So I'm a bit disappointed when neither Quest or any other platform has actually done that out of the box. It doesn't make any sense to me, because we're at the point now where there's a checklist of VR ready to go. Is this game ready to go stuff? And I've only just said a few of them there, but that stuff should all just be there now. It should be at operating system level and TLC, because that's just the way it should be.
Stingray X in the chat says, I'm still a defender of Job Simulator. It got me into loving VR. Nothing wrong with Job Simulator, right? But what we're saying is there's plenty of those games, and I'm glad that Job Simulator is so good and Vacation Simulator is so good, because those are the kind of, the stand in one place and do crazy shit games that are going to make people go, oh man, VR is so cool. You can pick up everything. Look what you can do. Throw this shit in a photocopier and duplicate it. It's also all sorts of cool things. So I talk about that kind of stuff pejoratively sometimes, but that's not the intention. The intention is that's a great starting place. That's not where you should be, a few years down the road from starting VR. And I mean that in a development sense, not as a gamer. You can play whatever the fuck you want as a gamer. Just saying, like, we're looking, as we talked about earlier, we're looking into bigger, more deeper, mechanically flat screen experiences that are that just also happen to be playable in VR, right? And I don't think Job Simulator gives you those kind of deep mechanics that people are interested in that will keep them in VR for the long term.
I don't know. It's just you need it all, but I agree with you. We definitely need full on VR. And I know Devin reasonably well. I've spent 11 years around Devin at various points. Devin's along with Alex as well, one of the Job Simulator guys. Devin's now raised some capital and he's making new VR games, mostly around hand tracking, I believe, and really believes that VR and hand tracking is the way forward. And Apple Vision Pro is interesting, and I'm sure evidence from his games that the full-on locomotion isn't his bag, right? But that's okay. I love Devin and I want to see what he makes, and I'm sure it'd be cool, and it'll be something creative and different, right? And I wouldn't say that there isn't place for both of them. It's like the equivalent of having an RTS or an FPS, right? It's like there's place for all of this stuff, and I just know we are all about like letting free and full-on locomotion, and that has a large audience of people that love it, and that's great. And I actually wish anybody doing the stuff that is static and room scale and XR stuff and all the other things that perhaps we aren't doing. I love playing their games too. It's like while I was at that retro show, I saw a bundle of Seventh Guest and 12th Hour, and it was the first time I remembered. Oh, they made a follow-up 12th Hour, and I completed Seventh Guest on a Quest not so long ago, and that I wouldn't say that's full-on locomotion. It's very much like very supported. It's teleport and stuff, right? But I still thought the game was amazing, and it doesn't have to be about the locomotion.
No,
right?
there's full locomotion in Seventh Guest.
Yeah, I think I did walking, yes, but I think I chose not to do some locomotion for various reasons. But I don't know why that was actually, but I do remember you can walk around, but I was using teleport in that, but it was a great game. It's like all I'm saying really is that there's a place for all of it, and there doesn't need to be some like right or wrong in that. The opposite. It's like if you really want to go and play, I don't like fighting games, honestly. I quite like PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds on the PC, and I've chicken dinnered it with my daughter recently. I haven't played it since. That's enough for me, right? But I'm not really into the military sims and stuff. I've enjoyed some of the shooters that are a bit more light-hearted, like Farpoint or whatever. But I don't go and play, Ghost of Tabor and stuff. It's just not for me. But it doesn't mean that I don't respect. There's an enormous audience out there that absolutely love that stuff. Can't get enough. Same with Gorilla Tag. It's not, it's not designed for me. It's not. I don't want to put energy into a game, and I had a laugh and I enjoy it, and that's enough for me. I don't want to go back, but it doesn't mean that I don't. This a place for all gaming, right? We don't need to be real-time strategists or turn-based strategists. It's like fine to both.
Yeah, the last thing I'm trying to do is gatekeep what VR games should be made. We definitely want it all.
Well, I can't wait to see what Devin's doing. I can't wait to see, the next Pistol Whip iteration from, there's so much games right now. I can't wait to see Endream's more bigger titles. I can't wait to see them. I'm really excited about that. I'm intrigued about the latest Aliens game coming out of those guys. Because Aliens, and maybe 12th hour will come and I can play that too.
I thought you were giving us a hint. It's the 11th hour, but I thought you were giving us a hint.
Is it the 11th hour? I thought
it is.
12th. I don't know why I thought it was
I'm a big old PC gamer from back in the day. Actually, we both are. There's a fan-made third game too. Something like, is it the 13th really? Doll or something like that? I forget what it is. Anyway, yeah, man. Like, I hope the 7th Guest must have sold great for Vertigo. I'm really hoping that they got the 11th hour.
I hope that they really and they got the 11th hour. I really hope that comes. And I think we share a launch. Like on the 25th when Windlands 2 is coming out on PSVR2, we also share it with the Walkabout guys. They're launching a DLC. I think Wallace and Gromit on the same day. And honestly, pick up both. They're both great. Wallace and Gromit is great. I love that. Love the fact those guys are doing that.
Well, you brought up Alien, man. So I'm gonna throw out one more question before you throw out any more questions. You haven't even thrown out a question, but I'm trampling all over you right now. Is what's happening. From our Discord, Awesome Tatum writes #viewer takeover. With all the new games coming to PSVR 2 this fall, which one will be a surprise? Which one will disappoint? And which one will be the biggest success? He says, I'll get us started. I think Darksword will be a surprise. Zombie Army will disappoint. And Behemoth will edge out Wanderer and Metro as the biggest success for the fall.
Well, Zombie Army's Bobby's game, isn't it? That's a XR.
Yep, XR Games.
XR Games game. Yeah. I think they've done some. Well, I mean, I am a proper fanboy. So is GT. I was speaking to him about it, of the Zombieland game. So they come with real credibility there. The visuals look great on that. They know how to do good VR. They've not really done anything that I would consider bad. So I'd say that that's going to be awesome. Yeah, there you go. I think that's the one that I would say that's probably Behemoth. I can't say it. Behemoth. Is that right? Behemoth. That looks really good. Yeah. I've heard really good things about that. So I've got high hopes for that. I would need to look at the big list. What else did you mention there?
We got Wanderer, Fragments of Fate. We've got Zombie Army.
Wanderer's great. I've played Wanderer on the PC and it was awesome. So absolutely outstanding title. Yeah. And that's the remaster of it as well, isn't it?
I mean, more like a remake, right? They got new areas. You can jump in it. Yeah. You can climb. You can also, it seems like they really went. They went back to the drawing board and spent another 2.5 years. Like most VR studios develop a game from start to finish in 2.5 years at most. And then here's Mighty Eyes taking a game that already exists and then spending another 2.5 years to upgrade it and make it a fully fledged, almost like they're evolving as a studio and they know we're evolving as VR gamers, saying, one of my big complaints is like, oh man, this looks so good. But then you walk up to an open window and you have to teleport out of it, right? Which just
it was outstanding anyway.
Right. It was outstanding.
It was outstanding.
Despite those
It
few.
was outstanding anyway. It can only be a must buy. That Metro Awakening was really interesting.
Yep.
What
about what you mentioned? Alien VR or Aliens VR, Rogue Incursion.
I'm nervous about that. I'm a big fan of Aliens, and I've played Alien Isolation in VR because it released this history there. I guess this history there, but I find that terrifying. It's like one of the most scary games. I've recently played Firewall as well, which is, an interesting interpretation of the Aliens universe. I wasn't totally enraptured with it, but it was quite good. Mm-hmm. It was better than I was expecting it to be. It's probably the best sort of Aliens 2 type simulator that there's been. I think the opportunity there is to do a great job, and the negative opportunity is it could go all wrong because Aliens fans are really, really, really precious about that stuff. Yeah. There's a new Aliens film inbound, so even that, with its credibility that's inbound, is nervous for anybody that's an Aliens fan. I've rewatched some of the Aliens movies recently in awe of the first 2 movies, frankly, and they've not really recaptured that. I mean, I've got mixed bags about all the other Aliens movies, but they've not really recaptured the first 2 yet.
I mean, there's only 3 Star Wars movies, only 3 Indiana Jones movies, and only 2 Aliens movies. So I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but the fact
I've just chosen to ignore all the bad ones because, dude,
fair enough.
I watched all the Alien movies recently myself, and I was just like, oh my god! After Aliens, it just falls off a fucking cliff.
There are some good reasons why I was rewatching the Aliens movies, and they'll come apparent in like 20 years' time or something. It will come apparent why. But I am quite looking forward to. I am quite looking forward to trying that. Although I struggle with horror. I mean, I love horror. I mean, I don't know. Have you managed to play Devour yet?
No. Nope.
And of course, Phasmophobia is coming to PlayStation, which is interesting. Is that coming to PSVR 2? Has that been confirmed?
Yeah, they're saying it's coming out to PSVR 2 and flat screen, of course, PlayStation 5 as well. They're saying this during their Halloween event this year, which means sometime in October it's coming out for PSVR 2.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, that is a great game. I've spent nearly 3 years playing that. So cooperative horror is cool, and I really like it. But the current in-class one is actually the a game called Devour, which is absolutely terrifying in VR. But yeah, I do know some more horror games coming out. I don't really want to say anything, but I'm aware of couple of my friend developers making new games in horror, which is quite interesting. One of them which you'll be very aware of, but hasn't been announced yet of what they're working on next, so that's quite exciting. So no, I'm aware of some good horror games coming down the line. I haven't played Madison yet. I've heard good things. I don't like the idea of single player. I feel like I'm a brave man, but as soon as you put me in some of those things, I turn into a wibbly wobbly thing. Yep. Even Alien Isolation, you're on there on your own, and it's not nice being around a 7-foot alien, right? It's just not. When it's done well with good sound, good visuals, and it sort of grabs hold of your head. And I'll never forget the first time that I got caught in I thought I was being smart. I'd hid in a cupboard, and it's sort of patrolling along the corridor, and I'm sort of peeking through this thing, watching this shadow go by, right? Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh, thank God for that. And then it ripped the front door off and grabbed hold of me and plunged this thing into my forehead. And I just took the headset off and said, fuck it, that. It's like, no, not doing that anymore. That's enough of that. Yeah. That game can be really, but that's the feeling that they've got to capture in. It's like it's a very high bar. Aliens, it's Alien 1 and 2 is a high bar. They've never caught it again in movies. It's a really, really, really high bar. Alien Isolation. It's like, especially the single player experience there. It's so high. And it requires so much audio fidelity and layering, so much AI in the aliens, so much, atmosphere with fog, dust, sparks, shadows and darkness. And these aren't necessarily things that go that well with a Quest or even the PSVR 2 can pull off the dark quite well, but it's still got issues with some of the things I've just described. And, it's a really, really high bar to pull off as good as, and frankly, Alien Isolation's that old hat, right? It needs to be better. Right. So if you're then going into many aliens crawling out of the roof and corridors and like Alien Fire Team, then you're even more difficult, right? Because you need those things to feel alive, and the tail doesn't need to feel animated. It needs to feel like it's ragdoll, and it's like I would really struggle to take that on and imagine anybody could pull it off actually. So I'm nervous for it. And then with the pressure of the consumers wanting to play, it's like it's a tough deal. It's a really tough deal, but horror's hard.
So let me ask you this then. Like, I mean, we haven't heard from Servios like at all. On PSVR2, they re-released Creed Championship Edition, but other than that, they've been relatively quiet. And as the way things were going on PSVR1, they were more of like, hey, we're going to release these really shallow arcade experiences very rapidly, and then suddenly they say we're making an Alien game, and they go quiet for years. Do you think they have what it takes to do this? Like, are you familiar with their team personally?
Not close enough, no. I mean, I've definitely met people on the team over time and stuff. It's just a really hard thing to pull off. I think that, they've probably got the creed and the capability and the budget to do it, but I don't know. I don't know. You could honestly, Brian, you could say, well, here's 10 million quid, John, go and make an Alien game, and I would like say, well, it's a lot, mate. It's like you just can't help but brace. It's not, and I am, as a Sam and Aliens fan, I've watched them recently. It's not that it couldn't be done. I just think the odds are really, really hard to get nail that one. So I'm nervous for them, but equally, I don't, whether I should be so precious about it. I just know that I know my kin, the people that love those Aliens films. Yep. The bar's really high. It's a bit like Ghostbusters and End Dreams. It's like the bar is so high. Yeah. It's really, you almost it's like, how could you possibly pull it off? It's almost impossible, because the perspectives, even between the people that really love those things, there will be people that absolutely say, well, Aliens 2 is a waste compared to Aliens 1, where it got it right because of the dark containers, and it's like you just can't pick a fight and win almost. So it's like, I feel from that point of view, but I really, and I've said it already, you have to give a lot of money to the IP holder in that scenario, so it's even more scary. I would be nervous about it. I'm sure they are. And I'm sure they're doing the best job they can, and I really hope they pull it off. They might hit that zeitgeist where people think it's awesome. What do you think?
I mean, I feel like a fool for saying this, but it's my most anticipated game of the year, which is...
Well, I really hope they don't disappoint. I really don't. I hope it is good.
Yeah, I mean, I feel crazy for saying it, because I kind of like I understand their pedigree probably more than most, and but also knowing that, they heard the fans when people found out they were making an Alien game. Everyone screamed, Alien Isolation in VR is what we want. And then suddenly it seemed like we were supposed to see the game, and then they backed off from showing it off for 2 whole years. And so now it sounds like maybe they listened, maybe they changed direction midstream, and are making the game that we all wanted. So I'm excited, but I don't know if I should be.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I played Fireteam, and actually they've done a respectable job. So it's okay. Right? It's like, but I wouldn't say that they've hit this bar of it's amazing. Right? It's just they've done an okay job at an Aliens game, right? That's if they can do that in VR, then that's probably going to get them past the few. Right? I wouldn't release it unless it. Why wouldn't I release the killer thing in Alien Isolation? Was the wake up in a room and get across the ship to the exit, right? So I would not release it. If anybody is listening, just delay until you've got that in, because it's like it would be very, very foolish to release without that one mode. And if it isn't, if you're in blind playtesting between Alien Isolation and your game, if it doesn't crack the same notes, again, keep going around in circles. It's better not to release and fail. Get content creators to play it first and listen. Go to. I hate to say it, but GT is one of the best in the world at complaining. Brian is. Put it in front of these guys.
That's what you want.
Yeah. Well, no, it's not beta testing. I call it a litmus test, Brian. But it's like it's a litmus test, because you will see it from a perspective of a reviewer straight away. And like I said, we talked about it 5 minutes, 10 minutes ago, or whatever. Within 30 seconds whether this is a killer title or whether it's got something wrong, and that litmus test is critical on games like this.
Yep.
It's like if you don't come away from a 10-minute demo, right, and I would do this with our next game, Brian, I promise you. All right, if I put a 10-minute demo of our next game and you don't come away saying I want to play it again, then we're just back to the drawing board until you do. You know what I mean? You got to come away and say, John, I want to play more of this.
Yep.
Give me more. And you're like, no, that's your 10-minute slice, mate. Bye. It's like, come back later. But yeah, it's got to pass that 10-minute test. And to me, it's that easy with that game. It's like, wake up in a room, get to the emergency exit room or the escape hatch or whatever. And if that doesn't feel great, it's like, keep looping that until it does. It's the core loop people need.
Yeah, there needs to be stealth, or maybe an option to play stealthy or play aggressively. There needs to be a sense of terror because these things are terrifying, even in the movies when you're not in VR. And honestly, I think the gadgets need to work really well. I think the motion tracker, if that isn't impactful, and you're, if
they're
that,
not even hard things to pull off. It's less is more with Aliens, and I don't think people see that. Even with Aliens, right, less is more. You've got to feel that. That moment where they're in the room and they're going like it's 7 meters away, 6 meters away. Shit, they're in the roof. Right, it's like if they're not capturing that feel, even with lots of Aliens, or the turret guns running out of bullets or whatever, if they're not on the banging on the doors and there's simple things in Aliens where they use the people coming out of climbing into narrow spaces, and they're the things that make it special. Not to mention the sound. I mean, just it has to have absolutely awesome layered sound. And the best, crawling through a small corridor to get out the other side, seeing a tail whip past in the shadow, and then a jet come out and hit you, and they go, it's like you just got that game has got to be full of those random encounters and set pieces and the AI. It's really, as I say, that detail and that love of the rocking, thing on the desk and the, that's causing a shadow in the background that looks a lot more scary. And it's like, you can't mess around with that stuff. That is really, really, really attention to detail. And Aliens and Alien 1, those directors knew exactly what they were doing. The pacing was slow, the pacing was powerful, and even not telling the actors that this stomach thing was going to burst out and stuff. And it's like, you could say that, well, that was a jump scare, but it wasn't. It was a tension build to that point, and it was just incredibly well executed. So, yeah, good luck. It's also, I'm on your side. I am.
Yeah.
But don't release it until it's ready. If it takes another 7 years, that's the right time to release.
Did you play Dead Space when it first came out back on like the PS3 360?
Yes.
Yeah. I just remember more than anything else the sound in that game, right? Like it really is designed somewhat similar to like an Aliens game, where like you just hear these things in the vents, right? Are they going to jump out at you? Are they not? You don't know. But when they do, it's like that tension is so high through the roof that when they do, it is so impactful. And I hope that Serbios has played Dead Space because they really need to understand those kind of things from the audio perspective.
Yeah, there's so much. And I reckon you could study all the Aliens movies another 100 times and spot little details you've not spotted. So it's a big one. And yeah, I'm excited for it. And I think they stand a good chance, and I'm sure they're not stupid, right? They're having the same conversations we're having now. I just really hope they get it right, and I think that if they do, it's a killer game, right? I'm gonna buy it.
And I don't know, just definitely want to talk about Behemoth here for a second. They released. I
haven't played Behemoth. I haven't had that look, but I have heard great things about it, and I've seen great visuals.
I sent Wes to go play it for me. He says it's pretty good.
I think it's going to be good. That's great.
But you have played like the Walking Dead Saints and Sinners, Chapter 1, Chapter 2.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. These guys know how to work a PSVR 2 properly. They understand I mean, Chapter 2 was running at such a high resolution at 90 native, I believe, in the headset. And it just looked absolutely stunning. Still one of the best looking PSVR 2 games to this day. But also but their scavenging system was great and their combat system was pretty great. And so I'm definitely interested to see how they handle adapting all of that stuff to this new, more action-oriented IP that looks like it takes a lot from Shadow of the Colossus. But I also feel like, as excited as I am and as confident as I am, that Skydance, they've got the pedigree, they're the people I'm confident in. I feel like these are the times that people disappoint you the most, is when you're confident in them and you're like, but you made this great game and you made that great game. Next thing you know, they make this game and it's not good. So there's a little piece of me that's concerned that this might be the game that disappoints us this season.
Oh God, you're putting a lot of pressure on me now. I mean, what happens if our next game's not quite what? No, it's like, I mean, I'd hope. I mean, you can't say anything, but I'd hope that they'd learn enough to make a great game again, and their quality levels are, high in terms of what they want to make. Right? It's like, of course, they want to make a better game. Any studio, but there are, not necessarily every game. There are something like 25 Grand Theft Autos. I mean, there are only like 6 really, right? But if you actually look at the catalogue, there are like 25 of them. Yep. Not every one of those was a killer hit, right? There was definitely misses. There were definitely like Vice City or whatever that were absolute hits and stars in their own right. But not every game that they released was absolute killer. Can you remember the remaster that absolutely flopped of whatever? It's like you can excuse any studio a few misses along the way, as long as they learn from those misses and make and embrace that, just like any human, right? You almost don't want a perfect track record. You want to, for me, it's actually Crystal Rift wasn't my perfect track record. I've learned so much from that, what not to do, what right to do, and I've made real human mistakes along the way. In the whole VR thing that I've now, I've just embraced really and built into, like, I'm a better human for learning from those things. And I like to think that studios as a whole, they can bounce back from things and be stronger for it. And so, excuse me, like From Software, I'm currently playing Elden Ring, right? But they've definitely had stuff that I've just felt like, oh, that didn't work. I didn't like Soraka at all. Other people do, right? I didn't like anything about it, right? Just nothing, literally. I didn't like the subject matter. I didn't like the mechanics of the fighting. But Bloodborne, one of my favourite games ever. Elden Ring, one of my favourite games ever. And then I played the, I don't know what it's called, Thingy 6, I want to say something Armour. It's their latest Armoured Core or whatever it's called. Is it Armoured Core?
Yep.
Say Armored Core. I think it's Armored Core 6 or whatever, but excuse me for not knowing the detail there. I didn't know that it's because I went and played it at Gamescom. I stood there for 10 minutes. I am fortunate enough to have got it in the BAFTA submissions, so I got it there as well. And then, and I'm like, I just can't get into this. It's just not my subject matter or whatever. So you've got a studio there that is like my favourite, top number one, put it right, the best games I've ever played. Actually, I've got a few misses for me in there, and it's fine. It's okay. That's fine, hopefully and they appeal to other people, and it's just aiming at a different target audience to me.
Yeah.
But you've got some things like that where you've got a studio that you absolutely love and it's got some misses in there and you think, Red Dead Redemption 2 from the Rockstar is also an example for some people I know. It's like number 1 they absolutely love, number 2 they couldn't get on with. But then there are people that would absolutely love number 2. It's like, just don't get it.
Yeah. So
should we have a look at the chat again?
So so what you're saying is it's okay if Behemoth doesn't.
I think Behemoth will be a good game, but I think it's okay if they don't. I think the consumers will feedback and they'll take whatever pain that gives them and come out with something better down the line. It's okay to not always be the hit.
Sure.
It's fine.
Sure.
I'd like everybody to have a hit after hit after hit. It's just the world says that it's all right to occasionally be. Also, you can, like you say, you can get complacent. Or the team can change. It's like the core of the heart of something disappears. The team changes, or it gets bigger, and you lose something. The team grows in size, like gets to 50 or whatever. Then it was 20, and then you lose something. But that's okay as well, because the pain of realizing, okay, well, we did something that isn't us here or whatever. It's like can adjust the studio's perspective again and reset that. And I don't want to grow too big in terms of numbers of people. Truthfully, I'd rather use third parties for certain things. And there's a whole bunch of cool tech stuff that we're building, and that removes the need for too much labor or whatever in the wrong things. And it's like hire really great people and keep the team nice and tight and really, really focused. I'd rather be that, honestly, and have the heart in the games we do, that we really care and it's not just numbers making stuff. I'd rather do that.
You've been keeping an eye on the chat. You got some questions lined up that you've been seeing?
Crystal Rift's still a go to when I open up PSVR. Good retro cramped Dungeon Master vibe. Yeah, well, that's what I went for. I wanted to rebuild Dungeon Master. It has got a level editor in it, and it was so that somebody could remake Dungeon Master so I could play it in VR. And if you carefully look at every tile I've made in that game, I've made absolutely every tile and all the logic to recreate Dungeon Master, but you can't do that. I can't make Dungeon Master in VR in it, but it has got a level editor. Please, somebody make Dungeon Master in VR and a whole bunch of other levels, because it's so cool going into those worlds when you come from the old sort of move a block at a time. If everybody knows the history of those type of games, it goes right the way back to one of the earliest games on the ZX81, which is called Maze, and it's like and it had one like I don't know, lizard-looking creature, a dinosaur in there. So yeah, that's why I made that game. It really was a project I was already working on when I first saw VR, and when I put VR into that game and I could actually walk down the corridor, I'd gone from a passively, people were like, what are you making? Oh, I'm making a Dungeon Master type game, and it's like, and I'm doing it as a hobby, to putting the VR headset on, seeing people want to play it, and walk down a corridor and get a jump scare and it be like suddenly a crowd of people just wanting to have a go. That was a big wake-up call for me, and it was my reason I jumped. Well, it's not my entire history in VR. I've actually played the Trocadero Centre stuff, and I played the Wizard game in Nottingham on the original Virtuo machines and stuff, so I had got history with VR beforehand, but it was the moment where I really, like, I'm going to make games for this. This is cool. So that was my whole story there and a thing. But yeah, I'm very proud of Crystal Rift, and I'm very happy it's on the Quest and that people can go and play it. And so, truthfully, the best fan mail I've ever had in gaming has come from Crystal Rift. People that loved that. I've definitely had people like emotionally write me full emails like about the experience. I am an 80s child. I won't surprise you there. Well, 1975 I was born, and it is full, absolutely jam-packed full of 80s, 90s rhetoric. So it's like, it's got levels about aliens, it's got levels about, Tremors, and it's got in-jokes about Labyrinth, and it's like, it's more than it seems if you actually read the text and play the games and pay attention to the level names and some of the puzzles. There's a lot of rhetoric and flashbacks, even some of the levels named after things in Dungeon Master and Eye of the Beholder and stuff. So it's like, for that certain fan, it's like, hits all those notes, but not everybody will get all
that. So Paradise Decay in the chat, I think this is a good question for you, John, because we were talking before the show, and you're saying that like your first game came out on like the Commodore Amiga, right? So you've been making games for a while. Is that what you said? Was it Amiga?
Amiga, yeah. I made a game called Squigs in sort of 1991, Amiga Power Days, sort of for the Amiga, and that was my first, I suppose, commercial. Sold that game, actually made money out of it. It sort of seems a million miles away right now, but that's where the name Psytec actually comes from. Somebody was asking me that. I developed the other day, where's the name Psytec come from? And I used to be what they call a public domain programmer. So I used to, like, on a Friday night, I was quite young at the time, like 17, 18, but I used to get picked up in a car, get driven to a farmyard in the middle of nowhere. We'd pack all our Amigas and TVs in the boot, and we'd spend the entire weekend. Every room in the house would be absolutely wall to wall with electrics and cables and everything else. And I'd spend the entire weekend programming VU meters and scrolling text in machine code, and like working with musicians and game creators and visual artists. And we'd create these like smash up public domain discs, which I'm sure I could mention many of them here and people would know what they are, but I was somebody that would provide little bits of mostly scrolling text. Honestly, I never really did. I have done fonts, like large fonts or whatever, because some I could do it at the time in Dulux Paint or whatever, but mostly somebody else would do the fonts, and somebody would do the music, and somebody would do the sound effects, and somebody would do the spinning star and the skull, and and if you ever go back and get the opportunity to play these things, you'll see Psytec scrolling across the screen. And I put my name to these, and then on the Sunday night there was a dead cut off, like on a Sunday night, like 4 o'clock or whatever, 5 o'clock in the evening, where we'd all take our work on the floppy disk, and there would be rows of Amiga 2000s and 4000s or whatever, because they could have 16 floppy disks, so they could have a source disk to load into memory and then write to 16 at once, and there'd be literally stacks and stacks of floppy disks that we would put our disk in one end, they'd load it into the machine, into its memory, and then they'd write out like 16 copies of this, and they would then take those 16 and put them into another set of bit. And these were people that owned shops around the country, around the UK, that drove to pick these things up. So my particular known one was a company called Innots in Nottingham. Innots, I want to say Innots. It might have been Computer 2000. You have to excuse my memory there, it's going back a little while, but Computer 2000 in Nottingham, they used to sell physical copies on the shelf, but they used to take these floppy disks and it go into their replicator first thing on Monday morning. They would then copy 16 and start distributing it. And I'm not kidding, those public domain discs by mail, car, aeroplane, boat, pigeon, whatever method it took, they would physically be around the world within days. Wow. And then people would go in, excited consumers on the Monday morning would go in and pick up the latest public domain discs. And we never got paid for it, but that's what I did, and I loved it. I did that for quite a long period of time. There's a whole story there, but that's where the name Psytec comes from. And
but you've been doing
I've always done it as a hobby up until 11 years ago. And started taking it more seriously.
Oh, okay. So it's been a hobby until 11 years ago.
Even Windlands 2 was mostly I was doing other jobs. I've been a CTO for big companies doing big exciting things and accelerated stuff. So mostly I've been a CTO and done some really big stuff, like talking about all that. But I worked for CCL, really one of the biggest manufacturers in the world. I've worked for the NHS doing stuff. Most recently, a company called Catkin. So I've done that and had a great career from that, and it's hard to jump from that, but actually I'm full-time Psytec now. I only do Psytec now, probably from about a year and a half, hence a little bit of a gap between when I was doing this new game, but about a year and a half, maybe a little longer than that ago, I went absolute full-time in Psytec, and this is all I do now.
I'm curious if you can answer this then, because PD asks, John, how much harder is it to make a VR game compared to a pancake game?
Oh my god, infinitely. You've got to run at 90 frames per second dual rendering. it's like so much harder, and the details really matter. Shader stacks and draw calls, and oh god, you should see some of our technical things that we struggle with every day. Our pipeline stuff. It's to do a really, really good, well done game in VR is not to be underestimated. And anybody that does it is frankly legendary, and I love the fact that so many people do make it, because any sensible person would be put off. It would be a dream to make a AAA 2D game, because it would be a lot easier. Or a movie. The budgets are less. And it's like you've only got an hour and a half to make. It would be like rather than I don't know, 100 or whatever is a good amount of time, but certainly 6 to 12 hours is pretty much like what you want to hit and above. No, it's a lot more complicated, but mostly because you can't skip a frame really, and that's even the best AAA games skip frames.
Right.
Yeah.
You got any more questions?
I'm looking forward to seeing you, P-Day. Looking forward to seeing you Paradise Decay soon. I think we've got EGX coming up, although I've got quite a few things. I tend to book very much ahead, so MetaConnect. I'm going to San Francisco, Palo Alto. I'm going to Sonoma Wine Valley with a group of us just before that, and then MetaConnect, which is like in VR, there's not many bigger events than that, so that'd be cool. And then, I've already booked Reboot and GDC, and it sounds like I'm going to come to PAX. So, a busy year next year.
Yeah.
But I like being on the road. I've just been to developers, to say, and that's the UK's biggest one is Develop, and it's basically 3 days down in Brighton on the coast, and yeah, just all the UK developers down there, and we had an absolutely awesome time. Yeah, can't really praise that enough, frankly. It's real. If you're in the industry, those events, and I'm sure Brian, you appreciate this, they really energize you. You know, when you spend time with people that you really love, and you're talking about subject matter that you really love as well, and you're surrounded by other people that get it, yeah. You really get a lot of energy and passion showing in one room, right? And that can charge you up for quite a long period of time. So I appreciate that every 3 months or so I get to go and do it again. It's absolutely exhausting. A GDC for me is 7:30 in the morning till 3:00 in the 3:00 in the morning in a jazz bar or Denny's or something, still talking VR. Within hours my throat starts to get sore, you know, but I somehow managed to get through 5 days consecutive of that and pass out on a plane on the way home. But it's such an energizing thing. Like this meeting that we've had today, you know, like us talking today, it's super energizing, and it's passion about VR is not going anywhere, and there are so many people, Paradise Decay included, and I recognise other names on here as well, actually. So I'm sadly, it would take me a while to go back through the list and say hello to everybody. But you know, I do recognise other names going down this list as well, and you know, I love hanging around people and just talking VR. It's there are many, many, many people that have had the same passions as we have.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Cool. It's really cool.
It's you know, like running this channel and talking about PSVR2 constantly. It's like we get a lot of trolls, we get a lot of negative comments, we get people that constantly just, you know, like PSVR2 is dead, you know, fuck you, like you only care about PSVR2 because you run a PSVR2 channel, you know. I mean, it's just like all the negativity you expect from, you know, the worst side of the internet. And then you go to something like PAX East, like I did, you know, in March. And as somebody who's like, you know, half agoraphobic, definitely deals with social anxiety issues, you know, manic depressive, whatever you want to call it. I forced myself to go like under duress, and it was the greatest thing I had done, man. Like being around people, like actually in real life. And I apologize, sirens on my end. Just that really, like you said, that get it.
It's not an unusual story, actually, Brian. I met somebody last week that has the same sort of issues, but a friend of mine I've loved for ages had brought him with him and somehow got him out of the house to the event, and I've had an email from him since. He came back, just said how energized he felt, and like meeting me was great, and you know, and all that. It's not an unusual story. There are a lot of people that I don't know, through their own history or through their own, you know, AHAD, or, you know, just generally just don't like going outside or whatever, or just haven't found their kin yet, truthfully, right? They've been on their own, they've enjoyed something thoroughly, and they've not yet gone out and realised, oh my God, there's like a group of people that think the same way as me and love the same stuff, and you know, and if the day you meet them, you sort of like, you know, it's a wake-up call for them and you, right? It's like just a wonderful experience. I've had conversations in queues and stuff, and you know, I've had people come up and say, you know, talk to me that would normally not be, you know, they'd normally be very shy, but they've made an effort to come up and say, look, you know, you cured my heights problem or whatever, and you know, and then I've broke into a conversation, and I've seen them light up, I've seen the light switch come on, you know, and absolutely start talking passionately about the games, even as though they can't even make eye contact because they're so not used to being around people that know their own, you know, feel the same way. And that, you know, truthfully, in this industry, I mean, I've been very privileged to work with many hundreds of developers, like many, many hundreds of developers, right? So I recognize it straight away. I can almost tell AHAD really quickly now. And that is very, very common. And the people that've got it don't realise how common it is. They just think they've got something wrong with them, right? It's like, and actually, some of the most high-performing, most intelligent, most capable people I've met in the industry have suffer with it. And they talk fast, or they over-talk people, and they think that's rude, or they've just met the wrong people that just have reacted badly to, you know, things that are perfectly normal, frankly. And you know, so I would say if anybody is watching this and has those traits, it's not because there's anything wrong with you. It's just because your brain performs in a different level, and that's fine. You're in a corner of a box somewhere that's doing an amazing job in your own life, right? And just get out there, find the people that understand that. Go to the game shows, go to just hang out at forums where people get you, and just honestly put yourself out there, because I'm. Yeah, anybody that's met me in real life in Paradise might be able to back this up. I am a very talkative person, and I'll reach out and I'll connect. But I've trained that in myself. I am not naturally that way. I realise what good has come from training myself that way. So it's like, naturally, I probably just want to sit at home and watch the telly and not go out and not, it's my natural place. But I go to every event I can. I go and help as many. I push forward as much as I can. I try and help as many people as I can along the way. Sometimes that's really helpful. Sometimes I'm just a pain in the ass, I'm sure. But I try and do everything I can for the industry as well. And as I say, ran a VR breakfast, developed for about 45 XR and VR type places, and I just want people to be in the room talking and making the industry better.
Tell us everything you can about the VR breakfast.
45 people. The platforms are there, so all the platforms, Pico, Meta, HTC, Sony, so a whole bunch of people there. Some content creators, you probably know GT and Mike, but they were there. That's great. I love those guys. And then there were a whole bunch of XR devs doing various things. The guy from Iron Wolf was there. You remember the submarine simulator? He was there. The people that did Haunted the Mansion were there.
Planet,
I mean, just honestly, I could go on and on. Right? There's 45 people of great caliber and amazing people in a room communicating and talking, and that's it's the second year since COVID we've done it, and I definitely want to do it next year as well, because there aren't enough. I mean, there are plenty of events to go to, but they're normally quite big, right? You can't speak to everybody. There aren't enough round table, smaller get-togethers. Nobody. It was wonderful to see you guys are doing that. It was absolutely lovely to see, and I would encourage anybody to go to one of those things, and back to what we've just been speaking. I'm definitely not a doctor, by the way. I don't know enough about the details here, but if you are shy or you don't get out of the house, just go to one of these things. Within 10 minutes, I swear, you'll just start to feed off it, and it does the opposite of what you'd think. Rather than being a scary, horrible experience, it's like you've got people on your side, and it feels like family suddenly, and that family, which is why the breakfast is important. It's like it's a wider family, and that grows. The more you meet people, the more you get out, the more that family grows, and the more the love's there, really. Can't put it any better. That was a wonderful breakfast.
I don't think you could have put it any better, and I couldn't put it any better, so I'm not going to try. But being able to put some faces in actual human beings to the names that I see on screen constantly it was a beautiful thing. And immediately, within hours of being at PAX East this year, I was like, and on the way there being like, I never want to do this ever again. Like, this is torture. My heart's racing and my head's going 1,000 miles an hour. As soon as I found people that I recognized, everything changed. And it's the love. It's the hidden love you can't always express. Yep.
I think I've got a little bit better at it now, honestly. I'm a bit more open by, showing people that I really do care, and opening my heart a little bit and sharing pains. And I think it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do, but you find your kin. There's nothing more special, honestly.
Yep.
That's what communities are. And you've got an amazing community. I know that because I've been into some of the chats, and I hung around your forums, mostly lurching. Otherwise, it ends up being dragged into all sorts of things. But I've definitely been into. We've met in many chat rooms. I occasionally drop in, don't I? And we say hello, and we chat for an hour or two in some of the chat rooms, and that's just great. So I love that community. Again, selfishly, I'm going in there because I know that it's people that think the same, want to talk, and I can listen to. Yeah.
Jon, I want to thank you so much for being my first guest on the return of Viewer Takeover. Also, thank you for taking this opportunity to announce Windlands 2 for PlayStation VR2. That is, if you guys were not here at the beginning of the show, it is coming out July 25th, which is next week. everyone should be really excited.
It's around that, isn't it? It's not very long now. It's like 10 days away. It's nearly next week. It's like,
oh yeah,
it's the 4th today. It's coming up.
Next,
it's coming up.
Next week, not this upcoming week. The following week.
I'm gonna. Yeah, well, we're gonna. I think tomorrow put all the keys out to the reviewers and content creators. You'll get yours tomorrow and give you that time to take a look at it and stuff. So it's cool.
Anyone with epilepsy should be looking away from the screen. What is going on? What's the flashing lights happening over there?
I have no idea. Is it me?
I think so.
Is it me? Is that better?
I don't know.
Just having a disco. It could be my whole house is set up with lights that are temperamental sometimes. I don't know why that does that. Somebody hacked in. Yeah. It looks all right now. It looks all right now. Somebody asked about Trocadero Centre there. I must answer, yes, I did play all the stuff at Trocadero Centre, the Sega VR stuff. And well, I don't think it was Sega. I definitely played loads of stuff at Trocadero Centre. Talking about aliens earlier, the saddest thing ever is that I didn't do the aliens experience that was at Trocadero Centre, where they dressed up as, I'm still flashing, am I? They dressed up as, no idea. I'm going to cover the camera and let it go again. Maybe it's just struggling with I don't think it's behind me. I'm not seeing any of that.
That's funny.
I'm seeing anything behind me. I wonder if it's a lighting.
If you're not seeing it, that's the most important part.
I am not seeing it.
All right.
There's no flashing lights in my room. So you've just got disco mode on. John, you're in disco mode. Auto, maybe it's got to a darkness that causes it to well, we better draw this to a close before I flash everybody's...
You're in disco mode. I'm perpetually in emo mode. So we've got a nice little balance going on over here.
I like it. Yep. I like it, yeah. Yeah, the aliens experience. They dressed up as aliens and scared you and Marines and stuff, and you walked around a building, and they actually had props on the movie set, like the eggs and stuff, and I really I'm super sad to this day I didn't get to go on that.
Oh, man.
That would have been a very cool experience. So, yeah, but I very much played the Trocadero in my younger days when I was in London, but we had a similar thing up in Nottingham where they had a laser quest zone, and on Amiga 4000s they were doing VR stuff, so I didn't miss out on VR at all in those early days. I actually, if anything, was a big arcade player and had lots of favourite arcade games, and played a lot of arcades. Sorry, I'm still banging on. We should probably draw this to a close. Unless you want us to carry on talking for 2 more hours, because that's fine by me.
we totally could do it too. That there's no question in my mind. We could get off of VR topics altogether and just talk about retro gaming and arcades, and we could absolutely do that. But you know what? I think we'll save it for another time. You're more.
It's the flashing that's done it. I have no idea why that's flashing. It's not in this room. It's genuinely not in this room. There's no flashing. Right. Good.
You are seeing it on Discord, though, right? It's not just.
I am seeing it on Discord.
Okay.
I am seeing it on Discord. I'm going to go camera off and on quick. There we go. Off. Any difference?
Nope. Still flashing.
Let's give up on that then.
Yep.
Hey Brian.
Yeah.
I will catch up with you soon.
John, you are welcome on Without Parole anytime you want to be here. You've always been great to us, and you guys make great games. We can't wait to see what you've got in the future. The site, you better be right fucking here to announce the next game whenever you're able to talk about it.
Make sure that you are very as high up that list as humanly possible, frankly. But we've got that plan yet, but it's coming. It won't be long.
All right, you guys, stay tuned. Windlands 2 coming to PSVR 2 next week, the week after this upcoming week on July 25th. Nice little surprise for us. Not too much happening this month, so it was nice to get this cool update. And even better, if you already bought it, sounds like you're getting it a free upgrade from PS1 to PSVR 2. So thank you.
Oh, grab it now. It'll be pre-downloaded.
There you go. Thank you, John. Thank you, Cats. Thank you, everybody. We love you all. See you next time.